Let's start with the meeting follow-up. I don't know if anybody has anything from our work session or from our business meeting last week. Anything? Madam City Manager, do you have anything? All right, we're going to swap the Fort Casper and the Casper Housing Authority update. So we're going to go ahead and start with the Housing Authority, whoever wants to kick that off.
I believe that Director Becker will make introductions.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you had requested an update from the Casper Housing Authority on everything they're working on. So we know we've got great things happening downtown with Wyoming Bank Building. We've got great things happening in a lot of the facilities you'll see from a housing standpoint. And again, this all ties into our council goal of livability and quality of life. So Kim Summerall Wright, who is Executive Director of the Casper Housing Authority. Housing Authority is our housing partner for Casper, is here tonight to do an update and share some really, I got to see the slides ahead of time, and it's just kind of, it's a great presentation. So Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I do have a handout for you at the end so that you can have all the notes of everything that I presented. So thank you again. I appreciate your time. So let me tell you, just for those of you that don't know our for low-income families here in Casper. Most recently, through a partnership with the city of Casper, we purchased the Wyoming National Apartments on December 1st. The property is 46 light tech units, 4 commercial spaces, and the cost of this property was $1.7 million, which is extremely below market rate for that property. The reason that we purchased it is to ensure that it remains an affordable housing complex. The first thing we did when we got there was secure the building. Apparently, once you live there, you have that key code to get in and out. So we had a lot of traffic in and out of the building. So we wanted to make sure that it was safe, because that is a big part of what we do, is not just affordable housing, but safe affordable housing. And so we actually went to key fobs, and we were able to program their numbers into their cell phones. So when someone comes to see them, it will call directly to their cell phone and let them in. We also secured the back alley, which had a lot of activity, and we've been able to reduce that with the new security there. The common area there is absolutely huge. It was the huge bank lobby originally. And so we brought in all new furniture, and we started to segregate it out into specific areas for specific things to do. This gets a lot of activity in the morning with coffee. We have a lot of people down there visiting, drinking coffee, and enjoying that sunshine coming in. We also have just personal seating areas if you want to visit with a friend. A new library. You can, it's a trading library, so you can actually take your book with you and then come back later, or you can sit there and read in the sunshine. We have a new family space, just so that you can come down. The kids can do gaming. There's a children's area, and then you can also watch TV and just hang out and visit. This is probably our most popular area because it handles a group of people. And what we've noticed just in the last few months is that the majority of the tenants there are really starting to come out of their units, come down and start to build community there within the building. We redid the office. If you've ever been there, it was red. So it was really, really dark right inside the building and very difficult to get into because there was so much furniture and things in there. So we opened it up. It's easily accessible by a wheelchair, which is really good news for us since we have 5 in the building. So it was really critical that they're able to get to us. And in order to kick off this space, Wyoming National hosted Urban Thistle Farm's very first winter market. So we had lots of visitors to check out the new space. Another thing that we do is we manage property. And in July of this past year, we took over St. Anthony's Manor in downtown Casper. We did not have any senior specific properties, and so this was a huge addition to our portfolio. It has a dining hall and community kitchen there. There's a lot of activity. Everything is geared towards people over 65. They're all 1-bedroom units. We also have a dining hall, community kitchen, and some living spaces. One of the most exciting things we've brought in is a mobile pantry. A lot of the folks that live there are not able to get out and go to a food bank if they need to. And so we have the food delivered there every Wednesday. What you're looking at is one of our case managers who handles the manor. And every Wednesday she takes whatever we get from the food bank and makes it into a meal. So it helps the seniors to understand, yes, you can make a meal out of this and here's how to do it. When they are done, she wraps everything up and sends it home with them so they have another meal besides just the one that's there. So we're sure they're eating something. Okay, we had to make some decisions about a permanent home for Casper Housing Authority. This is our new space. We purchased this building at 777 Overland Plaza, and we call this Lucky 777. So when you first come in the door, you're welcomed by an atrium, which this is really critical, we felt, because a lot of the people that come into our office come in crisis. We wanted them to walk through this atrium and feel that calming presence. There's water flowing, the plants are all there. It's just a really comfortable space. And we'll come out sometimes and they're just sitting there relaxing. So we created a very welcoming reception area. When we were over at Roosevelt, we had a very small space. It was very tight quarters over there. And we opened this up nice and big for families. So we have a kids area and a lot of things going on there. We also have the training space that we've been trying to get for quite a while. We have both audio and visual things going on in this. And we do a lot of training there, and all of our meetings are done there. All of our intakes are done there. So this space is fairly busy most of the time. It's nice to have microphones. One of the really fun things we did this year was the Urban Thistle Farm. If you guys have not driven by it, in about a month and a half, it will start looking more like this. It's going to close down for the winter, although we have been able to grow in all the geodomes this summer or this winter. So there is food growing inside. There is a lot of interior growing as well. So I'm trying to go fast because I have a short amount of time. Okay. So the food is free garden is what you're looking at over to the left, over to the side there on the right. That is free to everyone that walks through the garden. You can just walk through there and pick whatever you want. There's no restrictions. There's no explanations. You just come, you sit, you eat, you do whatever you want. We have hosted 3 AmeriCorps NCCC teams on the farm. They have actually built the infrastructure. We have 4 of those geodomes. They put in all the water. They built a lot of things that are happening over there. Pretty exciting to have them. They're great. I think they did come and visit with you guys, the first team that we had, just a very dynamic group of folks. We just started our CSA bundles. They're ready to go, and they are working on all the stuff for the community kitchen that will be installed here in just a little while. So 2 of our NCCC team members came, and they're in a gap year. One is going to Georgetown University as well. And so they came and spent the summer actually working on an internship program at the farm, or not summer, but the winter. So they've done amazing things and they really enjoyed their time here in Casper. Okay, so you've seen some of the community support that we provide, both for the community and for our tenants, the people that we serve. Two really big things in this list is our Project Homeless Connect, which happens in January in conjunction with the point in time count. We had a little over 150 adults, individuals, families, and children come through there this year that received clothing, food, just the necessities they need if they are sleeping on the street. Our summer program, which is really geared towards families, which is the HUD National Father's Day event, we had over 2,300 people there this year. Okay, so what I've talked about a little bit and touched on is the hot topic of LIHTC. And so I wanted to give you guys just a little bit more of an overview of what that looks like. These are the properties that we've built with that funding. Again, $48 million is what you're looking at. Okay, what is it? Basically, it was a federal initiative established in 1986 to encourage private investment in affordable housing. Okay, there are benefits such as tax credits to the investor, but it was the idea that instead of HUD having public housing and solely owning that housing, which they could not support, they had to come up with a different model. And so that came up with in 1986. The funding is to subsidize the acquisition and construction of the affordable housing. They do receive tax credits, those are federal. But one of the most important things that you're going to read on this particular slide is project must comply with income and rent tests for at least 15 years to avoid recapture of the tax credits. So it's very, very serious that these programs stay in compliance. So that has been renewed almost every year since 1986 by every administration since 1986 has had to renew the LIHTC property. Just recently, and starting in January of this year, the One Big Beautiful Bill made this, expanded this, and made it permanent. So low-income housing tax credits is now a permanent program. So it spanned all of those years, all of those different administrations, and it is now permanent. So the government does value this program. So there are some benefits to each community that has a LIHTC program. It supports job creation, stimulates local economies, and it does increase tax revenues. The social benefits, which is the side that we work on the most, is it reduces the housing costs for our tenants, it improves the community's stability, enhances the quality of life. The properties are in good condition because there are so many restrictions on them, and you have an investor as opposed to a loan officer. And so they want to know that we are taking good care of those properties, we are keeping them in compliance, and the property is in good and safe condition for the people who live there. Okay, so how does it differ from just going out and getting a loan, right? Because that's what people want to know. What's the difference here? So basically, when you hear LIHTC, that's just the name of the funding source, and it also identifies how the property is run. They are subject to long-term affordability restrictions and must comply with both federal and state level program rules. They must meet strict affordability and occupancy standards, and property managers and developers must also navigate complex compliance requirements to avoid credit recapture. The last line of that, where it says LIHTC is authorized under Section 42 of the IRS code. If anybody's ever met with the IRS or dealt with them, they don't negotiate. You will follow the rules. We are very much, this has to stay in compliance at all times. There's no negotiation. Okay, so we've done a lot. You've heard a lot of things that we've done even just in this last year, but the need is still there. Casper Housing Authority can house 1% of the population of Natrona County still. That population has grown even as we have grown, but there's about 10.2% of people who need affordable housing in this community that do not have access to it. Okay, can I answer any questions for you?
Questions from council?
I have a lot.
So I've got a series, if I could. So,
Come out, Pat.
so where are you at with, has Roosevelt sold?
It has.
Okay. And then North Casper Elementary, who thought is no longer in the building?
They left about 2.5 years ago.
So that's now being repurposed for,
As the Urban Thistle Farm. So it's the exact same project that we initially partnered with Food for Thought to do. It's exactly the same. We're just doing it under our nonprofit.
So what else are you gonna do with all that square footage inside?
That's a good question. We are building a coffee shop and a grocery store. Those are the two things that are slated to go in there. We have two commercial kitchens going in as well that will help produce the food that is coming off of the north side of the park, which will be all production.
And then Garfield? Or Willard?
It is still under construction right now. We just finished the roof on it, which is not.
So I thought that's where the offices were gonna be, and then daycare and other.
It was initially. When they did the Doge cuts, we lost a large portion of that funding.
Okay,
It was slated for that, which is why we shifted and we just went to a strict office building, and then we're doing offsite for all the pieces that were supposed to be.
so that office building had other tenants. Did the other tenants stay or?
We do have one tenant left in the building, who are wonderful. We have a really good relationship with them, but all the rest have left. We have so much traffic. We probably run about 50 people a day through our office, so there's an enormous amount of things going on and a lot of noise and things.
So lastly, on the LIHTC, I know a number of us, including the city attorney, went to Ms. Bextel's deal last year. And so that legislation didn't end up going through, but I'm sure in a non-budget session, she'll bring it back. We have a number of local legislators that are in favor of that, and we're on the check gate list.
We're aware. Very much.
So how can we better educate the public and those legislators that this is not against the law and we're following strict guidelines, federally approved? And the mirror, I wasn't aware that One Big Beautiful Bill actually made that permanent.
Right.
So must be President Trump's administration must be in favor of this, unlike the folks that are pushing against this.
Who are in favor of President Trump.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit confusing. You know, we have dealt with Ms. Bextel personally. I'm her favorite person.
Yeah.
However, the information that she has is completely inaccurate. You cannot take one line from an email that says, let me check and see if I can get you some information, and turn me into the godfather of the housing scandal. So I'm just not that powerful. The bottom line is this: we will continue to do presentations like this to educate the community. We've opened up our doors to everyone, with the exception of Ms. Bextel. She is not welcome on my property or any of my properties, because she has been harassing my tenants. And so we're not going to allow that. We just keep trying to educate them. We are working with WCDA and with Wyoming Housing Network to do the same. So that's all we can do. You've got to be willing to learn. She's not. Some of her supporters are just not willing. It's a narrative and they're going to run with it. That's all there is. It's unfortunate for the people of Jackson, because in my office, that Jackson property is probably the easiest property to manage in the state, because everyone you have there are first responders. We have people at 50% or lower of AMI. Those folks are they're your police officers. Those are the people that actually are first responders to the city of Jackson. So to target them and their children, and I know there is a restraining order against her as well from there because of the harassment and the targeting of the children. So, and we will do the same if necessary.
Any other questions? Yeah, Michael.
Thanks, Mayor. Kim, are the have the vouchers, have housing vouchers completely gone away? Do you deal with them at all? So I heard you mention something about supplemental
We've increased
housing.
them. Right.
Yeah.
So essentially what we've done is we've tagged on to every program that we can viably manage with the staff that we have, right? And so we've expanded our HUD VASH, which we already had. We actually have the VA VASH coordinators in our office. So when you're a veteran, you don't have to come to my office and then go all the way over to Wyoming L Works over in that area to find the VA. They are now in my office. And so we can generally house them a lot quicker. What we've done with the vouchers, or a portion of them, a small portion, is that we have put vouchers in half of the properties that we have. So you can start out at Ravencrest at $50 a month. If you have no job, no income, nothing, that voucher will let you go that low and it'll pay the difference. You can work your way up as you get a better job, as you get job training, to where you don't need the voucher, but you don't have to leave that community because we have other properties. Half of it is light tech, right? So now you can afford to pay about half of what you would pay in town. Then when you're done there, you can leave and purchase your first home. But we set up every property to work towards self-sufficiency in that manner without you leaving your support system.
Yeah, go ahead. Just follow. So could an individual use a voucher to rent a property that is not by Casper Housing Authority?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Casper Housing Authority is a pass-through for a little over $4 million a year to private landlords in the city of Casper.
Okay, thank you. That's what I kind of
Questions?
remembered.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't sure if that was still, and somebody asked me the other day, that I wasn't sure. And then if I could do a follow-up real quick to Councilor Sweeney's question about, so is the Garfield property, will that be rented? Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I did it. He got me started. Willard, I know that. Is that, when that renovation is finished, will that be housing, or what exactly will be in there?
Right now, we're staying with the original plan, but we are having to modify it. So we're not entirely sure what it's going to look like until we get all the construction done. We started on that project 5 years ago. And with those constant delays with the CDBG funds, every year that we were delayed, the cost went up. Then Doge comes in and cuts. And so we're really having to kind of maneuver around what that is going to look like when we get to the end of the funding that we have.
So the original plan, if I just to refresh my memory on that, was it was a daycare, and what else would be in there?
We were going to have all of the housing authority offices,
Yeah.
all of the case management pieces, the free store, all of that was all going to be on one site. And so we do have, we already have the training center running in our office, in our training room. We do have a school at Willard, or at North Casper School. We do have a school going there. And so the pieces are there in the same building yet. So we'll just have to kind of see how that goes with the funding, and then we'll know what parts we can do.
I see.
Right now, we're doing infrastructure. We've got the roof done. They're working on electrical, and they're bringing the all of the boilers back online. And so that's what they're doing right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Kim.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you for all the work you do. Appreciate you. Thank you. All right. Next up, Fort Casper grant application.
Thank you. Council, we're going to talk to you this evening about a grant to expand some of our educational offerings at the Fort Casper Museum, and also have the chance to introduce you to the new supervisor for our museum. So, Susan.
Mayor, councilors, good evening. I know that you have a tight meeting tonight, so I'm not going to, I'll spare you my commentary and just introduce Mr. Steve Gaynor. He is the new supervisor for Fort Casper Museum. I know that he has already prioritized education as a primary focus for him, and so I'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself and let you know a little bit about how he hopes this grant will help bolster those education efforts, and then stand for some questions.
Can I close this laptop? Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you tonight and tell you about the work that we plan on doing at Fort Casper. For those that I haven't met, and I have met some of you, I am Steve Gaynor, and I am the new museum supervisor at Fort Casper Museum. Before coming to Casper, I spent 35 years working in the film and television industry as a cinematographer. What drew me into cinematography was telling stories. What drew me to Casper was the amazing story that already exists here. Story of the beginning of this town, of Fort Casper in particular. In many ways, Fort Casper is the community's front door to the history of Casper. It's the place where visitors and residents alike can experience the story of people who have traveled through this valley, built the community, and shaped the region that we live in today. The grant that I am presenting tonight comes from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the federal agency that supports museums across the United States. Our proposal is called the Fort Casper Immersive Learning Initiative, and its purpose is simple: to strengthen the museum's role as an educational resource for students in Natrona County. The program is designed to bring students into the museum and allow them to learn history surrounded by the artifacts and objects and spaces where the history actually took place. Rather than only reading about the past in a textbook, students will experience it firsthand with the museum itself. We want students to walk into the museum and feel as though they've stepped directly into the history they're learning about. The grant would support curriculum development, teacher partnerships, and structured classroom programming so that schools throughout the community can make use of the museum as an educational environment. Most importantly, this is outside federal funding. Bringing resources into Casper while allowing the museum to expand educational program while being mindful of the city's budget. My goal at Fort Casper is simple: to bring more students, more visitors, and more outside funding into the museum so that it becomes both a classroom for our community and a destination for people traveling through Wyoming. Educational programs like this not only benefit local schools, but also strengthen the museum's connection to the community. When students visit the museum with their classes, they often return later with their families, helping build stronger community engagement and increase visitation. Fort Casper preserves the story of how this community began, and my goal is to help ensure it becomes a place where future generations of Casper residents come to understand and experience this story. I'm honored to be here in Casper, and I look forward to working with the city to help our museum continue to grow and serve the community. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council.
Any questions for Steve? Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
So how many, it might have said in here, but how many school groups do we get currently? Is it a
Currently,
certain-
we currently have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,200 students through the museum. I'm looking to bolster that amount between 1,800 and 2,000.
Is it a particular grade?
Yes, sir. It's 3rd through 12. Skipping grade 8. Grade 8 is on Civil War era history.
Okay.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mayor, we're requesting,
Okay.
permission to submit the grant. Thank you.
No city funding.
Just to be clear. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. All right. Application presentation for Conduit debt.
Mayor, I believe Director Becker will present. Council, you'll recall that in December, you had a work session where you approved the administrative policy by resolution for industrial revenue bonds. Staff subsequently went forward and invited interested developers to apply. And so Director Becker will talk to you tonight about our first application.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Mayor and Council, this is an exciting project that we're bringing forward. Again, as Janine had indicated, we talked through the policy last December. Staff went out and put together an application process for industrial revenue bonds. Again, we are looking at projects over 2 million. That was one of the criteria. And as you'll see from the memo that was submitted last week, we are looking at phase 2 of Blackmore Marketplace. And as we step through a little bit of this evening, I'm going to hit some of the high points about this project and our work with the developer who has brought this forward. And then you will also hear from the developer herself and some of the work that is going to entail. And then we'll be able to answer some questions and hopefully get direction this evening to move forward to the next step with this process. So again, want to draw attention to the memo that was submitted. The City put together a revenue committee back in 2024. And at that point, the idea was to look at streams of money that might be possible for us to pursue. This is whether it was obviously grants like we just heard from Mr. Gaynor, but looking at ways that we can bring revenue into our city operations so that we can do more. Well, industrial revenue bonds was one of the projects that we looked into as the staff committee. And bonds themselves are not going to be what brings in the money. It's the projects. And this particular project seeks to bring in a multitude of revenue opportunities for Casper. Not only through what we highlighted, which would be the full-time and part-time jobs that are created, the salaries, the construction of build-outs and the capital investment there, but also the sales tax space for Central Wyoming and making us truly a hub for commercial development, not to the detriment of existing commercial development here in Casper, but to actually enhance what we are able to see with some national retailers. So again, the bonds are going to allow this developer to be more affordable in what they're able to do from a growth perspective in what they seek to bring into Casper. With the process, this particular developer has worked with us every step of the way, completed a full application. They did the fiscal impact analysis, which is a requirement of the application and the policy. They introduced us to some bond counsel, and we've had, our city attorney has had numerous meetings with bond counsel so that we can be really on the cusp of understanding what we're moving into. Hopefully you will have some questions about that this evening. And then they also produced a staff summary. In the packet that I submitted, or we submitted, we did include the fiscal impact analysis for your review, as well as the staff summary for the weekend overview. We did summarize the bullet points that were key again to what this particular project will bring forward. And then a couple of the other points I wanted to draw your attention to under the financial considerations. Again, the bonds are called conduit debt because while the city is the issuer, the city does not have any liability for the payment of the bonds. That's going to fall onto the developer. The developer will function as the guarantee. And again, the debt does not count against our municipal debt rating. And again, our finance director, Jill, had stepped through that back in December also. The economic development tool that industrial revenue bonds provide for our community is to provide potential funding at interest rates lower than commercial lending. And so again, this is what draws a developer that you'll hear from this evening to look at bonds and to bring this idea forward that they can have a lower lending rate. But again, we as the community will benefit. The city does not bear any costs of the issuance. In spending a lot of time with the application, I wanted to highlight a few other points to all of you. Blackmore has been in existence here in Casper since 2007. They are a long-term entity here in Casper, and we are truly benefiting by what they are bringing forward to our community. So they have made a commitment to the Casper market. Their ownership approach is all about community involvement. And I was watching Karen this evening, even during some of the presentation with housing. When Blackmore first came on board, we were, everything was hunky-dory. And then COVID hit. And one of the things that this developer did, and many of you may have been out there, is they set up feature movies on the side of the buildings out there and made it an opportunity for all of us to be able to get out at night, even if we were or were not masked up, and be able to have some family fun friendly. They have invested in wanting to do things for this community. I know that she's always interested each year in our Rotary Duck Derby and what that does for our community. But again, I appreciate the investment that the Blackmore ownership has made into Casper and the commitment long-term. And finally, with the continuity of management with this company, again, we went through a lot of the financials behind the applicant. And this particular management company is not only professional, they have operational strength around the country. They know what they're doing when it comes to building commerce. They are consistent in their operations and hands-on, and they are very financially sound. So I look at this opportunity that Casper has as a community in Wyoming, and I think we're pretty blessed that we do have this opportunity before us. And I do believe that the industrial revenue bonds will assist not only the applicant, but us long-term through what we see from a sales tax and employment opportunity, which is, again, there's 4 criteria that industrial revenue bonds need to meet. Those 4 criteria are outlined in the memo. And again, we highlighted as staff how the 4 criteria were met with this project. So I'd like to introduce Karen Blumenstein with Flower and Stone, who is the representative for the applicant. And Karen's going to come up, kind of talk us through the project. And we've got some maps that we're going to get pulled up, but there may be a few slow spots. So I can just forewarning you, I may not be as techie savvy. So, but Karen is here.
My tech assistant.
Yes.
I did not interview her. But
No.
She was recommended highly, so
Yeah.
I'm hoping
Yeah.
it will work out well.
Okay.
Maybe
There they are.
let's do
There
that.
they are.
Let's start with that one.
That's a beautiful.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam City Manager, members of the City Council. It's my pleasure to be with you this evening. I have not had an opportunity to stand before you. You may know in 2016, and members of the community, thank you for being here, staff also. In 2016, we purchased Blackmore Marketplace after the unfortunate passing of Mr. McMurray. The McMurray family was focused on finding a new party to step in that had the financial capacity, that had integrity, and that would make a long-term commitment to the community. As you know, their hearts in Casper, and we were honored that they selected us to come in. So that was 2016. We've been here a while. Since that time, we've tried to build on the foundation that they established, partly by getting the center to be a little more stabilized. We had some tenants that just left the market altogether, like a dress barn, shoe carnival, and we brought in some other tenants to fill that spaces. So we had the existing Kohl's Center hanging out there ready. And then we had an outrageous amount of raw land. So what I wanted to start with is just to tell you what it was we bought, and then I'll tell you a little more about who we are. So everything you see on here are the parcels that we actually purchased from the McMurray family. They still own some of the zoned Blackmore Marketplace area. Some's residentially zoned, all sorts of zoning on there. Point from here, let's see how this works from my tech system. Bank it. Let's see, failure already. I might not even need it. So the existing development's on the right-hand side of Newport Road, which bisects down the middle. That's where the Kohl's Center is. Michael's is over there now. Ulta's is over there now. Hopefully you guys have shopped there. Hopefully you'll continue to shop there. We also bought Studio City, which is across second. So Crumble came in after we bought it. Red Wing Shoes. Thank you so much, assistant. It still doesn't really work. So if you don't see what I'm talking about, I'm happy to jump over the cord and point for you. I'll turn it back. Staff has been awesome, by the way, absent this one tech failure, which we'll let her be okay with. So this is all the land we actually bought. Discount Tire is open up there at the top. Studio City, like I mentioned up there, we filled in some of the vacancies in that. And that was 2016, and we really had not come out of the ground with new construction. And I'll tell you who we are. So Flower and Stone, which is my company, is primarily a retail developer, a little bit of mixed use projects, but primarily retail. And from 2006 to 2012, all I really did was public-private partnership developments. We can talk about those a little bit more. Casper, unfortunately, doesn't have that tool in its toolbox, but generally in a place like Colorado, there's a way that the communities can really assist in getting raw land developed, getting the developers in there, having a say in kind of what comes up out of the ground, and making sure the right parties are selected to come in. So I did that during what some people refer to as a recession. I did 10 deals during the recession. And for those communities, Their general budget was really happy that we were there. It was raw land that generated nothing. And we turned around and generated sales tax and property taxes. And the community had new places to go, new places to hang out, and they're all still there. So that's primarily what I do, is develop power centers. The other owner, my partner, is the Kroenke Group. And between the Kroenke Group and myself, we own and manage more than 10 million square feet of retail. There's a whole conglomerate of other things that are owned on the Kroenke side. Leave that aside, I'm not involved in that. But from the retail perspective, that's a huge portfolio. So what does that do for a community like you guys? That means that we have relationships with pretty much any national tenant that's out there. We have centers that have Cabela's in them. We have centers that have big grocery stores in them. Lots of properties out there. What we're known as is a company that delivers. So somebody that's going to come into a market like Casper, which, believe it or not, is a much larger trade area than you may think. They're going to say, well, this is a Flower and Stone and a Kroenke Group development. It's going to happen. The tenants they claim are going to be here are going to come here. They're going to own it. We don't sell anything. They're going to stay in that community, and it's going to be managed like a first-class center. So that's what we bring into a market. So when we chose to come into Casper, Casper met all of those sort of markers that we look for. We are not main developers. We're not in Malibu. We're not in downtown New York. We're in Kalispell, Montana. We're in Steamboat, Colorado, and Grand Junction. We're in Cheyenne. We're in Gillette. These are the markets we like to be in. And that's partly because of the product we deliver. You know, we're looking for mid-market types of opportunities. We're not Pottery Barn. We're not Crate and Barrel. But we are some pretty cool tenants. We can get to that in a second. Two things I'll tell you. One is I tend to talk fast. So if I'm talking too fast, just tell me, wait, can you repeat that? And if you really are lost during the conversation, I'm happy to go back over something then, or we can talk about it at the end. Am I able to queue up the next thing by just tapping it somehow, my tech assistant? I can see it. I'm going to go to... Yep. Cool. I just need to make it small enough so you can see the whole thing. I can see the whole thing. There you go. Okay. So what is phase two? Some of this stuff you've never seen. Some of these tenants haven't announced yet. They're sort of announcing now. What I will tell you is any logo you see on there has a signed lease. We built the building, and they're generally in build out, getting ready to open. So phase two is almost 200,000 square feet of coming into Blackmore Marketplace. It's a combination of what we call junior anchor tenants, outlots, a future grocer, and supporting small shops. In this case, and hopefully kind of see here, this is Maurice's and Five Below, who you've seen already open. It's an interesting discussion. Maurice's came out in the very first week, and their sales were almost double what they were getting in their prior location. That's the only tenant that was a relocation for us, but it was a good opportunity for them. This is actually the co-tenancy they're normally with. So their prior location was a little bit unusual for them. Five Below, which is a cool company. Someone just told me that it's considered to be the Costco for teenagers. I don't know if any of you have someone in the like 9 to 16 age, but apparently they love Five Below. They had one of their best weeks ever opening. So this is a little bit of tells you about why are these guys here? Well, these guys are here because this is a massive trade area. It's underserved. And they know they're going to do well. So Burlington Home Goods, which is the only tenant over there, does not have their sign up yet. Sierra, and a to be named Winco store. And the reason I'm telling you it's Winco is because we did sell that parcel. Their name is on the deed. They haven't announced, so I'm not firmly announcing a grocery store, but I am telling you that that's the new owner of that 9-acre parcel that sits up at the front. Gives you a little idea of the who's who. We're marketing to small shops, local shops, some national shops. We would love to hear from more of the local tenants, the Toronto County tenants, retailers, new and existing. It's a great opportunity for them to be around some co-tenancy that they would not normally be around. It's a little higher priced, unfortunately, but it also drives a tremendous amount of tenants and customers that they probably never see any other way. Construction started in January of 2025. John in the back here, who is the Sletton office here in Wyoming and here in Casper, is my general contractor. We're 85% built. Oh, I should tell you, I didn't name one more. I'll tell you that in a minute. And 2 tenants have opened. All of those tenants in what I'm calling the junior anchor building, so the building that starts with Reese's and ends with Sierra, will be open by the middle of April. So you will have lots of new fun places to go. The last box that sits in the parking lot here in green is Barnes & Noble, another new store coming into the marketplace. So bookstores still are around. I have a Barnes & Noble in my community in the Evergreen, Colorado area that never closed. They're awesome. I love bookstores. I love libraries. They're psyched to be here. They'll open in July. They run their opening dates as a whole on the tenant side. We can't really push them. I can tell you that the grocer parcel does have an obligation to build by a certain date. If they don't build, we can take that property back. So they're pretty incentivized to keep going. They wouldn't have bought the parcel if they didn't intend to come into the marketplace. They're also going to be in Cheyenne. We should open first. But so they're coming in here. Those are the markets that they see as the right place to be. You saw a packet with some summaries. The application that we submitted was, I think, almost 180 pages. Hopefully you did not have to go through that. It was a whole lot of fun to put together on our side. But part of what the application requires is that we have independent third parties provide reports. So the data that you see came out of those third parties reports. So THK, which is a firm based in Colorado, they do economic development studies all the time. They do market studies. They generated the report on the sales tax side. We also have an independent bond firm that comes in that evaluates all of our tenants and all of our projections and determines whether they are or are not reasonable. We have bond counsel that was mentioned. And we also have a third-party management firm that will handle collection of revenue and view expenses and kind of be a third party out there. The IRS is really the biggest eyes on these types of bonds. But we have our own crew of independent parties that come in, check our work, check who we are, make sure it's all reasonable. Thus far, we have invested almost $47 million into the phase 2 project. It sounds outrageous. It is outrageous. Construction costs are outrageous. That's not John's fault.
It's our fault from what I've heard.
I don't know whose fault it is. It is pretty outrageous, but that's why a tool like this really helps. On the upside, we're someone who just continues to invest. You can't just sit on land. At some point in time, the carry cost of the land, the opportunities are going to go away. You have to keep investing into these properties. So that's the way we look at things. Once COVID slowed down enough, the tenants were ready to come back out, and we were ready. So that's why you saw we first started talking tenants in 2023, and we're bringing them out of the ground, and they'll open in 2026. It's a pretty slow process. For us, it's a 10-year deal that we've even been in the parcel. And this is the first time we've been able to add a big chunk of additional retail. So I'm pretty psyched up. We're pretty excited about it. And what does it do for you guys beyond a huge community benefit? Lots more places to hang out, safe places to hang out. We are going to generate about $58 million in taxable sales when these stores open. So what we call the stabilization year 3, let's say. That's based on numbers that come out of both our portfolio experience. We have quite a few places where we have programs like this. The tenants have to report sales. So we're talking about numbers that we are in our own know. And then the third-party firms verify those numbers. And that actually is their projection of what the sales volume will look like. That'll grow to about 85 million over the first 10 years. That's a whole heck of a lot of taxable sales. That's not cannibalizing existing sales. That's new revenue coming into the market. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's even there and why there's such a great opportunity to capture that. The other things we do is generate a ton of jobs. Liz mentioned briefly, huge jobs already in the construction side. John gave us some of those numbers, but I think we've had almost 500 opportunities for construction folks to come in through the project and get paid, stable, have opportunities to work on an actual live fun project. We'll have more than 400 permanent jobs that come out of this phase alone. That's equivalent to about 280 full-time jobs. And that's everything from someone who's on the floor as a retail person to assistant managers, to back office folks. One of the nice things about these kinds of tenants is they tend to raise from within. So you may start on the retail floor, you may become an assistant manager, you may become a manager, you may go over and handle a trade area. So it's a great opportunity for hopefully some of the youth who are into the business side of the world and want to stay in Casper. And just some people who need some part-time jobs that are stable, that have some benefits attached, that they know are not going to be gone in 30 days. So it's flexible work, full-time, part-time, but a great opportunity on the whole. So why is it that these guys are in this market? These tenants are in this market. Let's see if I can handle doing this. Okay, so you might be surprised that this is a regional shopping center. I'll just let you be. This is replacement tech.
Yeah.
What's your name, by your name?
Derek.
Derek, pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much. So Blackburn Marketplace is becoming a regional shopping destination, and that's really what we build. We build power centers, draw from huge trade areas. So the tenants that are here, they consider the trade area to be about 125 miles. This is not a grocery trade area. This is the existing junior anchor type of trade area. So the folks that are already there on the other side are going to see all these new customers coming into the market. And all of these tenants use this kind of an analysis to figure out, well, where's the shopping going to come from? So while you may say, well, Casper is, what are we, 70,000 or so folks right now? The trade area is about 130,000 people. So those are shoppers that right now are going to Cheyenne, are going to Rapid City, are going to Billings, are going to Fort Collins. They're going everywhere except here. So we're leaking, which is really the shopping center term, sales opportunity and sales revenue to these other locations because we don't have those opportunities now. So we're going to both capture that leakage, which is key, and we're not going to cannibalize the other opportunities because we're going to start grabbing those folks in between that headed that way, and they're going to head this way. And this is the tenant analysis. It's not something that we generate. They come in and they look at a community. They do extensive analysis on what their sales volume is going to look like. Their rent rates are driven totally by that. So while it would be nice that we can say to them, hey, you have very few ground up new market opportunities and we want you to pay this, they're going to say, we're only going to drive this kind of sales. That equates to this occupancy cost, and that's what we can pay. So between construction costs and what really is, if you want us in the market, this is what we can pay. It's our job to figure out how to deliver a shopping center that still is reasonable from an investment perspective. It makes sense to own in a market like this. On the upside, we're long-term owners. So we're not building to sell. We don't need to get this up. In 3 years, we're not going to sell it. 10 years and 20 years, we're still here. We look at our return environment over a much longer period of time than your typical development and ownership group might. So we can come into these markets because we're a little more patient with our capital. That doesn't mean we just go willy-nilly, though. Everybody's got opportunities. These tenants have opportunities to go pretty much anywhere in the country. So they're choosing to come here, we're choosing to come here, and everyone's looking for a reasonable period of time to recover what they've put into the market itself. They're excited, we're excited. So the fact that it's a regional market is going to be awesome, and trapping all that leakage is going to be tremendous. There's also quite a few community benefits that we're happy about, excited about. Back over to this one. Okay, Control L. Let's see if I can do that right. There you go. Okay. So in the course of this development, we're going to be building a new public park. I say it's public because it's all of our money, but at the end of the day, we're hoping that the city will take it as their park. We will still cover the costs of that park. That's part of what the opportunity of the industrial revenue bonds do. So you'll get a new park. We'll have built the park. The Rotary Club is going to get involved with how we design that park and what's in there. And because I have on my own family side some neurodiverse people, my goal is to make this park so that someone who's in the neurodiverse community can come here, be comfortable, and enjoy it. So it's going to be pretty unique for the city of Casper from that perspective. We're also going to be having more bike racks, a lot more pedestrian connectivity, and lots of opportunities to get here. The city's going to be putting a new bus stop in place somewhere in front of that grocer parcel. So some of the senior community can get over here. This is a great grocer. It's nothing like any of the grocers you have. It's employee owned, which is also pretty unique from a grocery perspective. They're psyched up to be here. So between the new park, the new transit stop, the connectivity, the things we just do in a community like the movie nights, we'll continue to do some of those fun new things because we have new tenants out here that will help drive that interest. That's going to be great. And the other thing is the spillover effect. So right now you've got lots of restaurants, lots of other shopping opportunities that are kind of hoping to get new customers and new people in here. This is going to drive a ton of new folks that have never shopped over here. They're not going to just shop with us. They're going to shop other places. They're going to go down to David Street Station in that area. They're going to stay in the hotels. They're going to eat in the restaurants. There's a huge spillover effect. We actually calculate that almost 30% of our sales volume will come from outside Natrona County. So that's who you're seeing that wasn't shopping here, that's going to come in and shop here. So that's a great benefit for this community. We're excited to be able to do that. The other thing is we have all of that other land to develop. So as this comes up, more tenants are going to say, okay, it makes sense. They were 140,000 square feet. They're almost 300,000 square feet now. This is a regional shopping center. This is a place we want to be. So there's other tenants that have talked to us over time that we're kind of in that waiting zone. We have almost 50,000 square feet that we can develop right down here in the bottom in that yellow box. It's on the Cole side. We have out parcels that are up on 2nd Street. I'm focused on trying to find some more sit-down restaurant opportunities, mid-level restaurant opportunities. You saw Aspen Dental open. Panera will be opening next to them. Panera's a little slow on the opening side. They're probably a fall opening. There's somebody who we had kind of paused, came back, we're patient, we waited for them. That's the type of tenant we want. So hopefully you guys that are Panera folks will be psyched up to come and go over there. So
Where's the park location?
So if I had my pointer, this area right here will be the
Okay.
park.
That
So we'll have screening.
triangle.
Yeah, so that's almost, it's an acre and a half or so. And we're also going to have some elements along the hillside that you can just sit and hang out. So you'll be able to hang out in all of this stuff through here. Thank you. I won't trip over that at this stage. So in closing, as you continue your review, we respectfully ask that you determine that the required findings under the statute, Eric can tell you all about the requirements on that side, have been satisfied, and that the project demonstrates clear community and economic benefit. We look forward to your continuing review, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but thank you very much for your time. It really is a pleasure to finally be in front of you and be able to say hello. Happy to answer any questions.
So a few questions. So
Just a few.
on the do no harm,
Yes.
why not try to buy them all? And then as other places have done, then the outshoots, come from there. But I just see it as further emptying an almost empty mall.
So when you say buy them all, I'm going to assume you're really by the mall. Is that what you said? Okay. I'll answer it two ways. We're not mall developers. And malls, as you probably have seen across the country, are being demalled. So the upside is the current owner of the mall now has pretty deep pockets. They know what they're doing. The downside is they have a huge New York transaction for housing that they are just gotten into the midst of, which may have them take their eye off the ball a little bit. But these are not tenants that go into malls. So you find very few Home Goods, very few Sierras, very few Burlington in a mall. Some of the tenants that are in the mall right now, Ashley Furniture talked to us. That we weren't at a price point that they could really afford. They're more often out in a power center, but they'll do fine. They got an outside interest in the mall. So the front of that mall is great. These tenants want you to be able to walk right into their stores. They don't want you to have to walk through a mall to get to them. So it's a very different tenant mix than the mall will have. I've actually talked to Liz a little bit about the mall. I will tell you that this new economic development tool you have, I am sure that they would get educated on and probably take advantage of. It's a tool they're going to need. And they're making enough money apparently on the mall. They have gotten some new tenants in there. They're cutting really nice low deals. So they're bringing in some new tenants that haven't been in the market. That's great. But a very different tenant mix comes into, it's kind of a power center than into a mall.
And then another question I've got, I guess, in my mind, the organization itself, Kroenke Group, definitely has wear for all, and his wife definitely has wear for all. And so I'm just wondering, why is an IRB so attractive in this days, interest rate and.
So the IRBs do two things really that I don't think Liz touched on. One is they let you recover the equity in your deal faster than you would otherwise have. So when we look at a project like this, if our equity is going to be sitting in there for 20 years, it's not probably a project we will do. Because of the Kroenkes and the wherewithal. I don't have that wherewithal, but I do have the experience. We can go build anywhere. So we kind of have to compete with ourselves on what does that opportunity look like? What does this opportunity look like? Like any business person, we're only going to go and do something that makes sense from an investment perspective. It doesn't meet our model, for lack of a better word. For this to meet our model, the IRBs are one of the ways that we can get there. It also will help us continue to invest. So we have probably 80,000 more square feet of inline type of retail we can bring in, out parcels we can bring in. If all of our equity is sitting in there, then we aren't going to go throw more equity into the room. It's just too much. Between the purchase price and this investment, we're at almost $80 million we've invested in this community. So as you do that and you kind of know what it's like to borrow, it doesn't matter who you are anymore in the world, that means there's a lot of equity in the room. And when you go to the permanent market, it's not like it used to be. When I first started building shopping centers, I could go into the permanent market and I would get 100% of the value of my shopping center and I'd get my equity out. We get about 65% of the value now. That means 35%, which is generally my equity, sits in that shopping center. So something like this allows us to recover that equity faster and then put that equity back in to build more. So that's really why. So it's not necessarily how deep your pockets are. That lets us kind of keep going and bear the risk, for lack of a better word, get those tenants in the door and hope that we can find some other tools that will help us. Interest rates are interest rates. You got to build to the interest rate. You buy a home, if you can afford it, great. They kind of are what they are. We're never going to see those rates that we saw before from a commercial or residential side, but you still have to find a way to continue to be vibrant. And this is one of those tools. And I think you will find, hopefully, that someone comes in and sees, well, hey, that's a deal that Blackmore Marketplace was able to get done, help them. They just invested another $40 million plus. I can come into that community. They have a tool. I know that the council understands that it's tough to build in this environment, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's retail, whether it's commercial, whatever it is. I think that having a successful project is going to spill over from that perspective also. And when these guys go out on the economic development side and try to tell somebody, hey, come into Casper, it can be affordable. We have a tool in our toolbox now that we've never had before. This is a great way to show that proved it up. So that's a long version of an answer.
So one last question. So will the playground be similar to the premium outlet malls, mall at 138th to 144th?
Yeah, which by the way, that Cabela Center, that's right over there, is one of my shopping centers. It will be similar. I wouldn't consider that to be really focused on a neurodiverse community. We hope to have some areas that are quiet spaces, for lack of a better word, They're designated like that. If you've gone to, in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, there's a new park that's at 38th and Wadsworth. You could probably Google it and find it. It's a really good example. They have a whole section that's really focused on a quieter play. They have outdoor instruments that you can just tap on that are kind of a wind chimey kind of sound. They have barriers up that are moderate graphics so that from the street you block off the noise. So there's places for somebody who just wants to sit, whether it's a baby or whether it's someone who really can't function that well in a really, really noisy environment. They have climbing opportunities there. And then they have a second section that's really much more noisy, that your more robust, active child or teenager, whatever, could go over. They have a lot of just hangout areas that you can sit with your family. You know, you got food, you can have a meal over there. So it's going to be a little more like that. I like some of the elements of that Simon property. They have some hanging swing chairs that you can sit in, which actually are good on the neurodiverse community side, and some of that kind of stuff. But I think it'll be a little more targeted to what those communities really need. I like that question. You went all the way there to shop, so now you know you don't have to go as far.
Play on the playground.
Yeah, he wasn't there to shop. He was,
Yeah.
he was there for the.
You go to Barnes & Noble, you get a new book. You go sit over there, you chill out, you read the book, and you're all good. You can send the kids over to the noisy section. They can go hang out over there. You can sit with the baby. So hopefully it will really be a great attribute. Other
Oh, I thought you had,
questions?
sorry. Anybody else? Yeah, Kyle.
Thank you. It was Karen, was
Yeah.
it? Appreciate it. Really interesting presentation. I know a lot of people in the community have been really curious about all the activity going on over there. So this is a great kind of summary of everything going on. Appreciate you articulating that so very well. Mentioned, not that I think we should be looking to Colorado to copy too many of the things that they've done, but you made it sound like there's lots of tools down there, public-private
Yeah.
tools down there that don't exist up here. I'd be curious if you're able to rattle off a couple of those,
Sure.
or just in general. You know, I'm always looking more opportunities for the city to be a better partner in development and stuff. And so I'd be curious
Yeah.
what those tools are that you're familiar with.
Yeah. You know, I mean, partly what you do already, some of these optional taxes, specific purpose taxes, you know, you put specific projects out there, you let the community say, hey, do you want to support these? Great. And then you tax out there. In Colorado, we don't put a tax on. We go into a community and it's a combination of different things. So if we look at the Cabela Center, for example, there's a Cabela's, there's a Hobby Lobby, there's a Burlington, traditional power center, quite a few shops over there. Thornton, Colorado had already labeled that area as economic development land. They stepped in and purchased it. It might be something to do with the fall. That's a different discussion. And they held it waiting for the right opportunity. We stepped in and said, we can bring Cabela's and we can bring these other tenants. We think we're the right partner to come out there and do that. They said, we agree. They actually contributed the land that Cabela's sits on. We built all of the infrastructure for Cabela's, similar to the fact we built all of the infrastructure for Winco. So we're incentivizing these tenants without support in this case, whereas there, we would have built it all, but they share a portion of the sales tax that's generated. We're stuck here in Wyoming because your sales taxes are not distributed the same way. You know, a dollar that's generated here doesn't come to us. That hamstrings you a ton. You don't really have a city sales tax. You have the optional taxes, but you don't have a tax tax. What the other communities have is they have their own taxes or fees that they have out there. So they can do fee waivers. So if there's an impact fee, in the case here, we have invested almost $600,000 in fees, tap fees, impact fees, sewer fees, storm fees, all that kind of stuff. Most of those communities will waive those. And the reason is we're stepping in, who's bearing the risk? This is raw land, it generates nothing. We're putting $47 million into that raw land. We're bringing in the tenants. And then we're hoping that they all function, that they're all successful, that the community shops, that it's a great shopping center, and that ultimately will recover. The less risk, the more opportunities that come in. So in Colorado, they have the ability to, as a council, Eric can probably explain this better, but I'll kind of explain it. They actually pass an ordinance that waives a portion of the taxes over a specific area. And then we get to impose that as a fee. It's called a credit PIF, credit public improvement fee. Tenants pay us that fee. And over time, we recover our investment through that portion. And really, it's a gap. So we have a gap here. How will we fill in the gap? Partially through industrial revenue bonds. How do we fill it there? Public-private partnerships. So they may, in some cases, come in and build some of the public infrastructure. Here we build it all. They may contribute land, not an opportunity here. The breweries are great, but they were not giving us all of that land. I would not expect that. So that's really the fundamental tool. And I think if you look around over the past 25 years, I don't think there's a single project that came out of the ground in Colorado that did not have a public-private partnership element. And similar to IRBs, we take that revenue and we can bond it out, or we can pledge it to a lender, and then we can borrow against it. So it's another way to recover. So for you, the trouble or the challenge for an IRB is there's got to be a revenue stream that can service the debt. So if you are a nonprofit, you have to have at least a profit that could ultimately come down and service the debt. And I know there are projects out there that are hopefully going to be able to find a way that their pro forma works, that they can provide the service, have some excess revenue, service the debt, fill gaps like that. So you're somewhat limited. Fee waivers is definitely a way to go. Different things you can do. In Colorado, you can impose your own mills. So the districts that are here, you can only have like a sewer district or a water district that can be in there and they can put their own mills on. In Colorado, we have these municipal metro districts that we can put around our property, and that metro district can impose its own mills. The city may also share some mills. And the negotiations end up being kind of like this. The police know they need this. We're going to impact the police by this amount. We're not going to touch the police mills. The school system's got this. Yes, we're going to generate a ton more money for the school system, but we may generate more kids, the spillover effect of housing. We don't touch that. It's really traditional property tax that just is a general fund number that they may share, and that's the way it goes. So you have some of that, but even property taxes don't go the way they go. And in Wyoming is Wyoming. So property taxes are not really high on the hog in terms of getting imposed. So it's challenging. It's a very challenging environment. You got to meet your budget. You have to have folks that can come in with their own wherewithal, with patience, with risk tolerance. And for you guys, this is a tool you actually will be able to use for somebody out there who's saying, I'd love to bring in a new manufacturing facility. Doesn't pencil. Well, it'll pencil if I could put some IRBs on there, because I'm not paying carry costs over the same period of time and recovering some of that money earlier. So it is a good tool. It's going to be pretty project specific. I can tell you that staff, we worked with staff for 2 years trying to find some way to get something done. And then finally we just said, we're going. So ultimately you kind of have to do that. We're going to bear the risk. We're going to go. We're going to continue to talk to council. We're going to hope that council says, we see what you've invested. We see you have additional work you want to do. We want you to keep investing. Maybe we buy them all at some point in time. I think that my role in the mall will be more as a consultant advisor with the folks on planning and zoning and economic development. So that's a quick summary for you. But it's not so much that you're not doing something you could do. I think you're unfortunately, from the statutory perspective, pretty limited in what you can do.
Appreciate that information.
Yeah.
Get you in front of us a little bit more often. And first person I'm aware of to use the words pro forma,
Pro forma.
not city staff.
It's been a pleasure to work with the city staff, honestly. I mean, they have tried to be as creative as they could possibly be. Great to see the new city manager. My background of looking at her, and we have met, is that she gets things done. She's focused on deliverables. That's something that makes folks like me come into the market and say, okay, I can see prior performance. Things are happening there. These are all good things. Council asking good questions, being supportive, shopping. here and not at the Outlet Mall out there. Simon, which I love that mall. You know, these are, you know, it's good. Little by little, you find opportunities. And I know at the state level that they're pondering, trying to figure out a way to have the sales tax system work a little bit differently. But you're somewhat hamstrung because of the environment that you're.
Go ahead, Pat.
So you picked a really good general contractor and a great guy to head that up. So, and this might be more of a question for John, but were there any of our building codes? We've recently heard there's a problem with something to build a new hotel. I still haven't narrowed it down. I think it's got to do with backflows and something else, but I didn't know if there was anything in particular.
I can answer on the Blackmore side, just with respect to things we ran into at Blackmore. The way the drainage system works in Casper is your uphill people drain to your downhill people, and it's your downhill people's problem. Doesn't work great. So we have an issue there where we took a ton of water from the uphill folks, came down into our alluvial. We had to put a special foundation system in under all of our buildings to shed water. John can talk more about the code. I promised John he wouldn't have to talk, but he's willing to answer the question. He could answer the question. So.
Sure.
Do you all know John?
Do.
He said he knows.
Uh,
That's when he was pitching. He was pitching his business.
Yeah, it was a
So.
resounding lack of enthusiasm. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the time, and Karen, thank you as well. Pat, I can tell you there's not any issues from a code standpoint, you know, from the city's perspective. The city's doing anything different here than anywhere else in the country, quite honestly. And I think you have a very strong city staff from the building department side that understands codes well. So no is the simple answer to your question.
You could answer that.
I couldn't.
And I will tell
Thank
you
so
that,
much.
you
We
know-
appreciate you.
We should bring you in more.
We should bring you more in, yes. It's not gonna carry.
I'll tell you, for us, inspectors have been great. Planning and zoning, Craig Collins has been awesome. You know, Liz has been awesome. Jill has been awesome. And that's important to someone like me, and it's important to the tenants. You know, when they come in, the first thing they say to me is, how long is it going to take me to get my permit? They spent 9 months in Boulder trying to get a permit, or in Denver, or wherever trying to get a permit. And I'm like, you're going to submit, and the city's going to give you a response within 2 to 3 weeks. And they're going to say, I don't even believe that. And all I can say is, that's what's going to happen. And so that's the positive thing, is it's not so much, hey, the code is the code. You're very similar to the codes anywhere in the country. But how quickly do you get through that permitting process? Because that's expensive. You know, the engineers cost a ton of money every time they got to respond. You go into the public works guys, they answer your questions. You know, lots of places won't even pick up the phone. Alex back here picks up the phone. It's just a change. You know, there's a couple things that are a little quirky just in terms of integrated shopping centers. Some of your zoning is everybody has to have access to a public road. It's a little bit unusual, you know, little quirks like that. They're not going to kill a development, but it does make it more complicated in how you lay things out and things like that. But the code itself is not problematic. I got great questions coming over here. I don't know your name, sir, so Councilman.
It's better that way.
I see you at the Simon Outlets, though. I'm going to do. Anything else I can answer for y'all?
Yeah.
This is more for Eric. So on this process, is this something that we can expect a fight from Bextel?
Mayor, council, not exactly sure how to answer that. I mean,
I missed that question.
yeah, I mean,
Probably
You
better
won't
that
have
way.
to
yeah, it's probably better that way.
Thank you.
I mean, anything's possible. I think that we've thoroughly vetted the process, put a lot of time and effort into promulgating the policy, done the necessary legal work. I think we've had a good process in terms of the application submission, have a good understanding of the state statutes, and the processes that we need to engage in moving forward. So if anybody were to ever challenge this, I feel that we would be on very solid ground to defend our decision. And so I don't have any trepidation should that happen.
I'll tell you that our attorneys did the same thing. Spent quite a bit of time looking to see good and bad. There aren't a lot of places where IRBs have been used. It's a volume that the state hardly ever gets even remotely close to expending. So the economic development side of that statute is a little unclear, but all of our council has agreed, or bond council has agreed. We started by talking to Eric, so I think he's absolutely right. We have not seen anything anywhere. City's books doesn't end up as a city obligation. You're acting as a conduit that lets me issue double tax exempt bonds. My bond interest rate's lower. So it's lots of upside on the private side, but really no downside on your side. We end up paying your expenses. So absent somebody deciding to be a troublemaker, which that's just our reality. There's nothing unique to you all. I'm enjoying all of these questions. These are awesome.
You're done. You can't ask any more.
Good job.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you all for your time. It's a pleasure to finally get to stand in front of y'all. And I do have cards if you want my number. Liz has my contact info. If you have other things you're wondering about, you definitely can pick up the phone. I can send you articles. And if you just Google public improvement fees in Colorado, you'll see just a myriad of examples of things that pop up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is for us to have staff move forward, right, Liz, to begin the process of the application, of getting the application through, doing that. Okay. Yeah. Everybody good with it? Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Thank you for your investment in our community. Appreciate you. Thank you, Liz, for your work, staff.
You too, John.
Oh, John, thank you.
Yeah. Spread a little love.
Thank you, Michael. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Stoneridge Park.
Council, you have a vestigial piece of property that Director Collins is going to, or excuse me, why did I say Collins? Director Beckel is going to walk you through quickly. My understanding is that staff were asked to bring this issue back about this time of this year and revisit it and determine if you'd like to place this property for bid.
Mr. Mayor, Council, it's been such a long time, so it's good to see you again. Pretty much specified in the memo, we posted this or put it out for bid, as you all know, last fall. The price value was $270,000 from the 2025 appraisal. And our question before you this evening is, Craig and I are interested in seeing if you would like to put this back out for bid, and if you have any interest in having us get it reappraised. So we are looking for direction on this, but I think you all are familiar with the property because we went through it a multitude of times.
Liz, could you remind them the date of the appraisal, most current?
2025.
Okay, Pat.
So there's no way we can possibly put this back out, that somebody in that development could only purchase the property, as I understand the surplus property statutes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to default to that fabulous city attorney.
Mayor, Council, appreciate the question. So Wyoming Statute 15.1.112 does govern the manner of disposing of the property. We are required by state bid and to sell it to the highest responsible bidder. I don't believe that we can put sideboards on the terms of the sale that only adjoining landowners or members of that subdivision or what have you could purchase it. We did have a discussion in my office. The only way I could see trying to restrict The usage of the property would be to put deed restrictions on there. The city did this with the Plains property. So you could do something similar with the caveat that if you did restrict the usage, then I think a new appraisal would be required because the current appraisal would not be valid, and you'd be likely looking at a lower value in the property. So the short answer is I don't think we could restrict it such that Councilor Sweeney is asking about. But there could be deed restrictions there.
So just clarification, so you said that if we do have put deed restrictions on it, would lower the value? Is that what you were saying?
I believe so.
Could.
Yeah, it could. Certainly, because when you're restricting, when you have a bundle of sticks, which are your property rights, if you're selling the entire bundle and that purchaser can do whatever they want with it under the law, then you're going to maximize the value. But now if you're saying that it can only be used for certain purposes, you're taking away some of those property rights. And so generally it's going to have a lower value.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Other questions for Liz? So I guess how does council feel about putting this back out to bid? It sounds like there's could do deed restrictions, but there's some risk within that. And I don't see staff shaking their head excitedly about that. And so, sorry to put you on the spot there, Liz. Just getting that out there.
That's good. Just shaking.
Not sure. I guess what I'm also hearing is, would we want to have it reappraised again to see where we're at on that, and then put it out to bid, or how would you guys want to do that? I guess so kind of move that way. Yep.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess I would ask the city attorney how rock solid those appraisals need to be in order to take action on a property, because 6 years on council, I've learned the lesson that a property's only worth as much as someone's willing to pay for it. I've never seen one reach appraised value, so I'm kind of hesitant to invest more in getting an nobody's going to pay the appraised value in my experience. So the question is, what's the cost break? At what level is the council comfortable getting rid of the properties?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilor. So great question. Statute doesn't dictate that it be done within any particular time period of the transaction. Doesn't even state that you can't sell it for less than that appraised value. I think it's really a transparency issue in the statute to say, hey, we're selling this. Here's a professional opinion as to the value, but I firmly believe that when you put it out to competitive bid, it's worth what willing buyer at an arm's length will pay for it. So to your point, you may get multiple bids that don't hit that appraised value. That doesn't mean council can't choose to sell it to that highest responsible bidder below the appraised value.
Yeah, I think another distinction is that the city didn't buy this. We don't have money that we've invested in this property that we need to recuperate. And so I think that we should consider that in our decision too. I think even if we had, I still think Kyle's point is valid that you never get appraised value, but especially in this case, it costs taxpayer money to get. In fact, it costs a little bit of taxpayer money just to have it sitting there, and it was ultimately opportunity cost to not do something with it. So in my opinion, it's a win for the taxpayers to turn this from $0 into whatever the highest bid is that we can get. So I think open it back up and see where it goes.
Any dissent? Everybody okay with opening it back up?
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. All right, now to the big one tonight. Capital budget. Settle in.
Council, yes, settle in, but we have, I will assure you, done everything we can to streamline the conversation for you tonight. I'd like to start off just with a quick high-level overview of the capital budget that is being proposed for you tonight for fiscal year 2027, which of course starts July 1st. The total proposed budget is $33.4 million. This includes projects for street improvements, water and sewer infrastructure, public safety services, and municipal facilities. I want to emphasize as we start out tonight that capital planning by necessity, must take a long-term view across many years. Capital spending, of course, naturally varies from year to year due to uneven project life cycles, revenue changes, other factors, and variation from the current fiscal year capital spending to the proposed level of spending for the next fiscal year, you'll note, is $5.85 million. And that is across all funds. Throughout tonight's discussion, we'll draw your attention to projects that are maturing and that are contributing to the natural deviation year to year in capital budget amounts. The capital budget, as you well know, is critical for sustaining the high-value public assets that the city oversees and manages. There are 158 separate projects outlined in the capital budget. I assure you we will not discuss them all tonight. I know, you were very excited, weren't you? These capital assets, as you know, they sustain and support the services that Casper residents and businesses expect and rely on every single day. So of the $33.4 million proposed budget, half of it is concentrated in 7 major projects, and the lion's share of those projects involve critical infrastructure for water, streets, sewer, wastewater, and the like. Focusing on these projects seems like the best way to start off, and so I'm going to invite Management Analyst Pete Myers from Financial Services Department to talk to you about the highlights of these 7 initiatives. While Pete comes to the podium, I wanted to also acknowledge, maybe by asking our city staff to stand, the work that city staff have done and their willingness to be here tonight. Stand up, you guys. Yeah. These folks are key participants in the capital budgeting process. Here to help answer any questions that I cannot for you tonight. And I want to thank them for not only preparing their capital budget requests, but for sitting with me through many hours of meetings, much of which involved educating their new city manager as well as reviewing those projects. So thank you so much. And I appreciate y'all being here tonight as well. With that, like I said, Pete will talk to you about the 7 projects that comprise half of your total capital budget.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, City Manager did mention this is a long process just to get this far. We started this process in November. It was the official start date. Let's all stand up. They started to do the real heavy lifting, doing the research and figuring out the capital plans for the long term. It is a 5-year plan. So there's a lot of planning going. You have to figure out projects not just for the current fiscal year, in this case could be FY27, but all of that period out. So you can certainly see in some of the documents that have that there's projects for 2029, 2030, so on and so forth. But for tonight, we're really going to focus on 2027, unless and until council asks otherwise. Yes, the number for tonight is $33,439,946. That's a significant figure, but it is larger than last year, but it is smaller than 2 years prior. It is smaller than 3 years prior. Certainly, capital by its nature tends to fluctuate. The major projects this year to go over. First of all, yes, street construction projects. We are spending quite a bit on street construction this year, about $4 million. That's a hefty chunk. 2 projects are going to be dominating that. One being the 14th Street Improvements Project, and the other being the Casper addition. Both of those are fundamentally in central Casper, and those are going to be funded largely by LEDs, assuming that they get approval from the voters in those areas, but also lots and lots of money from 117. That's going to be the source of most of the funding for those 2 projects. Yeah. Aside from that, there are 5 other projects in the streets area as well, but mostly it's going to the one that's going to be the first is going to be $8 million, and the other is going to be 3. So very significant project.
Both of those are also, it's not typical for us to design in 1 year and then build in another. In these cases, both of those projects, they are so significant that we actually are designing as we speak. We have design firms already doing the work to lay the groundwork, so we've got well figured out before we get started. Moving on from streets, we've got police vehicles. As you guys know, we buy police vehicles every year. This is going to be our regular repurchase of 11 police vehicles this year. This one is significant because so much of the money is coming from the federal government. We did receive a federal grant for this, $828,000 is going to be coming in from the Department of Justice. So we're very pleased about that. We received that money as partly with the support of Congressman Harry and Hageman. So that was very nice. Well for us. Obviously, the police department also has other projects, including a drone that they'll be using this next coming year, but some cameras and some various other projects. The ice arena, that's a significant project as well, just under $1 million. This is for the compressor that some of you have been on council for a little bit longer. You may recall we used to have a compressor up at the Casper Event Center. This was a project that we briefly had ice up there. That device got moved down to the Casper Ice Arena, and but it's now failing. It's now time to replace it, and so this purchase will replace that device. It should be a lot more efficient when they buy it. It should be a lot more, and also sized appropriately for a second sheet of ice. Assuming that project, that fundraising works out, we should have plenty of money plenty of capacity, to support both the existing sheet of ice as well as the new one. Either way is an appropriately sized piece of equipment. After that, we've got the Crossroads Lighting Project. I want to draw attention to that one as well. This one is being funded by $650,000 of 1 cent 17 money. It's also got about $50,000 of capital reserve money in it. These are old poles up Casper. We're trying to replace them, trying to get them to good working order. We had set aside roughly $160,000 a year from 1 cent 17 with the idea of buying them gradually over the 4-year period of time. In this case, we decided to lump it all together to one big project, which is why that area, the FX, is standing out as a significant increase from previous year. You may have seen that it's kind of stands out on the list because it shows as a 1,485% increase in the budget. That's because athletics usually doesn't have a whole lot of funding. It's not like a utility fund which generates its own money. So we can only really use 1 cent for that sort of work. Last year's project, all we had was money for an aerator. That's all they could afford. So, which we bought, by the way. It's $45,000. It came in under budget. Aside from that, then we got into the utility projects. We've got water distribution projects. As you may recall from our rate setting period, the water fund has a relatively significant fund balance right now. We've been saving up for a number of years. We're expecting about $19 million. The spending of $5.5 million will start to burn off some of that excess fund reserve so that we get some of these dollars put to work. Obviously, we also have a rate increase that was done for water distribution. That was 8% this year to help fund these as well. But water is spending most of this $5 million, but it's also spending about $1.5 million for the 14th Street project. So I just don't want to overlook that. This is a significant amount of money for water projects. Beyond that, we've got sewer projects. I'm sorry.
Good.
So are you now on source of funding?
We can talk about source of funding, absolutely.
No, I'm wondering where you're at.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm working through the highlights within the
Page 27.
within the budget document. And again, I don't necessarily need to read it to you verbatim. I do apologize, but I did want to at least touch on some of those large.
Yeah.
It's about half the budget, just these 7 here. So I figured they're probably worth a little bit of time. But with that being said, if we need to go to different locations, we certainly can.
Why don't we go ahead and stay on this right now,
Okay.
and then we can jump to when there's questions. We can on that. Okay,
No,
good.
Mr. Mayor.
Thanks.
So, all right, so again, just briefly on the sewer projects. Again, this is a significant amount of sewer work that's been happening. A good chunk of it is in central Casper. That's part of a project that's gonna be a 2-year project. A lot of stuff right by the Detroit County High School. But again, this is a major increase for the amount of money we're spending on sewer. Largely that's being funded by the rate increase that was passed back in January. That was a 34% rate increase. That's unlike the water fund, which had a significant fund balance, sewer really doesn't. So the fund balance needs the rate increase so that we can get some of these projects, get them going. And then last but not least, we have the wastewater treatment plant project. That's the secondary clarifier. First main. Everything at the wastewater treatment plant is extremely expensive, as you all know. Certainly you had your council meeting up there just a few months ago. They'll be replacing that line. It's $2 million. And they'll also be doing some work on the clarifier itself for another $500,000. That set sort of rounds out the major projects this year. It's not in previous years when we came and spoke to you about capital, there was a singular significant project which was sometimes required specific attention. 2 years ago, we had a 10 million gallon tank for water distribution. Before that, we put forward the initial funding for the Casper Business Center, which was, again, significant singular projects which were by themselves 30 or 40% of the capital budget. We don't have something like that this year, but we do have these others. I think of it as more sort of generally surging in different areas. Again, with the idea of trying to catch up on some of these capital needs. But with all that said, and to Councilor Sweeney's note, we do have 158 projects, and we do have 100 city staff present who are all ready and willing to talk as needs be. If you want to delve into some of these details about specific projects.
I think our city manager would like to say something.
If you're done, Pete, I was just going to kind of wrap up. So, Council, I wanted to talk to you before we go to questions, just a little bit about how I approach capital budget decision making, if you will, and I think use some examples of projects that you may have questions about to demonstrate that. So, typically, when I'm reviewing the budget with these folks, I'm looking for 3 key criteria that weigh into my decision, along with many other, but these are 3 that carry a lot of weight. And the first is risk management concerns. Is the project in question dealing with some kind of security issue, safety issue, or liability exposure? I will give you an example. Pete has mentioned there are many vehicles being replaced or major equipment being replaced in this budget. In most circumstances, that equipment has failed or is failing. And one example would be a mower in your athletics section that I believe has been pretty much largely inoperable for about a year. That, of course, erodes the level of service. It degrades the level of service we're able to provide to our residents. It makes us less efficient from an operational standpoint. So risk management is the first of the major 3 criteria. The second is I look at efficiency, and this mower is a good example. Not only is the mower a safety or risk management issue, but it is degrading our operational efficiency. And so replacing that really checks a couple of those boxes. In addition to operational efficiency, I look at financial efficiency. For instance, are we deferring maintenance in such a way that costs for fixing things is exceeding the cost to replace the things? Pretty much basic financial principles that I'm sure many of you employ in your own homes and your home lives. Another thing we look at is energy efficiency. And so many of the projects that are recommended for funding do increase our energy efficiency. I am a fan of energy efficiency for financial purposes. For instance, at the Bale Field, there are solar projects recommended where the return on investment of that energy efficiency upgrade has been evaluated. And within 12 to 16 16 years, depending on which of the two projects we're talking about. We recoup our initial investment and begin into a savings position. And so projects like that, where energy efficiency overlaps with financial efficiency, are also high on my list of things that are priority items. A couple other examples around efficiency. There are cemetery equipment recommended in here to be replaced that will allow staff to be more effective in grave tamping and really take a more modern approach to that. So there's a safety and a safety factor and also time savings. And then lastly, lights that are being replaced at the Cottonwood complex that will be more energy efficient. You heard Pete talk about that, but also help us to be more effective in our mission. The third criteria is revenue generation, and this largely falls in line when we're looking at our wellness and health services and our recreational facilities and parks. So looking at that investment, and will it help us to achieve our cost recovery goals, right? So the second sheet of ice is the case in point, which you are most familiar with most recently, and the replacement of the chiller facility that currently supports the single sheet and will support both sheets if that second sheet of ice comes to fruition. You remember looking at the cost recovery metrics that Director Lopez provided to us last month that indicate that second sheet of ice actually will enhance total cost recovery for the ice arena beyond what currently is enjoyed by the single sheet of ice. So revenue generation is a second major category. And one other project to demonstrate that would be a project at the Ford Wyoming Center to expand the Club 13 balcony seating. And I think you guys probably know as much, if not more than I do about that, but I understand there's revenue generated from that. So in discussing that project with Director Lopez and her staff, that was a key element of consideration and why that is recommended to you for this next year. So using those three criteria and many others, we're able to bring this plan to you tonight to prioritize capital investments for the next year of our multi-year capital plan, hopefully to use the city's limited resources to return the maximum benefit to our community. And lastly, I wanted to touch on, as far as the overview here, your council goals that you adopted at your last meeting. There were three, and one of them, major infrastructure, is really completely carried in this capital budget that you're reviewing this evening. Fully 50% of the infrastructure that is being invested in will be in your utility systems for water, sewer, wastewater, refuse collection and disposal. And then I wanted to focus a little bit on street investments, and you heard Pete talk about some of that. But it was a target for the council to try to increase our investment in street reconstruction or construction to $7 million. We do attain that when you take into account that many of these projects, as he said, begin this year and will complete in your fiscal year 28, so 2 years out. With that in mind, remember the capital budget is presented now, and with your preliminary approval tonight, then it will be incorporated into the full budget that you'll review in late May and ultimately adopt in early June. With that, that's sort of the overview. I know you received a sizable document digitally. If you have specific questions, we're happy to take those. And then I would remind you that you asked us to deep dive a little bit into a few projects. And so after we move off of general capital budget, we're prepared to talk about two projects that remain what Pete and I talked about today, partially budgeted, right? You've budgeted early phases, but we are still working on the budget for final phases. Those two are CBC and Fire Station 2. So we're going to talk about those. And then you do have memos in your packet for spec projects, as was suggested last week or the week before. We do not necessarily have to cover those memos tonight, but they are there. And if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. And if you'd like to cover them, we do have staff present to go over those memos with you.
So any questions for Pete regarding, thank you for the update, appreciate all that. Any questions specifically to Pete for the capital budget? Yeah.
So first concern, I think Janine answered one of them, but I saw in Oil City where the state is moved up, it looks like, Poplar Street from Collins to CY. And I don't see any mention of any mains being replaced. If that's to come to pass, or you have any information on timing on that particular project.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, thank you. We certainly do have, I believe, depending on how we count, 3 active projects on Poplar Street right now. I guess we just finished up the Poplar First Street project. We have others that we are cooperating with YDOT to get those up and running further down. I'm certainly not going to be the expert on exactly where we're at with all of those projects. I'm certain there's a gentleman from Public Services who would be very happy to discuss it with you in more detail. But fundamentally, yes, those partnerships are in place, and we do have those budgeted in the current fiscal year, right? We have to sign these cooperative agreements with YDOT, in some case years in advance of when the actual work will happen.
So I'm guessing we have sewer and water mains down Poplar.
Mayor, Councilor, yes, so the Poplar Street project from CY to Collins, that project, YDOT is rebidding that project. They bid it back last year, I think in November. They got one bid that was not favorable, a very high bid. And so they're rebidding that to get more competition, and they've, I guess they've rearranged the project in phasing to accommodate some of the traffic control and the construction sequencing. So, but there is city water and sanitary sewer within that project that, as Pete had mentioned, we had a cooperative agreement, and we had started budgeting for that construction several years ago.
So it's already budgeted and we've set funds aside,
So,
other than is contained here.
Yeah, Your Honor, that is correct. The funds you see in front of you are what I'll call new money that we're going to be applying. Money, $33 million. Certainly, as you may recall, we begin every fiscal year with a large budget amendment, roll over projects which are in process but not yet done, and those would be among them. For various legal reasons, we certainly had to have the money available to partner with YDOT at the time we could sign those agreements. And so in some cases, just the design and time takes a long time. But yes, so when we roll those projects forward, that's what those monies are for. So when the time comes, we have the money available. But it is not included in the projects you see here tonight. These are entirely new projects.
So, and I'm assuming we address stormwater. That was always is a huge flood right there with a big downpour.
yes, so Mayor, Councilor, that project is, the big emphasis on that is stormwater. YDOT is putting in the capital to replace those stormwater mains that run through there. And they, as a larger portion of the big picture, they started closer to the river and completed that last year. Now they're working upstream to finish that portion.
And that's on them?
Correct.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then the second one was on the evaporator. So this will be sized. I went to a hockey presentation at 3 championship teams, and at there was the second sheet of ice folks did a presentation to the whole group. There were several hundred people there, and they're at about 75% of the funding. They've just opened it up to the public as far as funding, and they believe they're very, very close. So I anticipate that very soon. And so this new evaporator will be able to service both. That's a sizable compressor.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Sweeney, absolutely, that's absolutely.
Through you, Mayor, Councilor Sweeney, we are recommending funding that half from the Opportunity Fund and half from 1 cent 17. Council should be aware of that. And as you'll recall from our discussion, that was originally proposed to, or excuse me, I just said 1 cent 17, I meant capital reserve and opportunity fund. As you'll recall, that was scheduled to occur a few years out. We've had to move that up in time to accommodate the really great fundraising Director Lopez tells me our private group is doing, and the eventuality that the chiller may need to be replaced this year.
Hold on one second, Pat, I think looking at a clarification or something.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. I don't want to misrepresent what we're doing here, okay? So it's been in our 5-year plan to replace this condenser for several years now, knowing that, you know, when it reaches its life in 27, 28 is what we anticipated, we would need to replace it to service the existing sheet of ice. The proposal that was made to council several months ago was we could not have to make that investment if a new arena was built and the new condenser served both sheets. To say that this $984,000 would cover the entire cost of a new condenser to serve both is probably not correct. But we're saying, let's take those funds that we would have to spend 2 years from now, bring it into the current project and help fund that new condenser. I just want to be really clear about what it is that we're doing. We're borrowing from future investment to make the project happen now.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I have a different question, but since you just brought that up, so the evaporative condenser that we are proposing is above and beyond one that we would need to service the single sheet of ice, but the way the fundraising is going, we're operating under the assumption that they complete their fundraising goal, and through their fundraising, they will in part cover the cost of an upgraded condenser. Is that, am I spitting that back to you in an accurate way?
Correct. We're still finalizing design, but so much of the life of this condenser has been used up already that it would not make sense to just add capacity because it wouldn't last long enough to make it worthwhile. So purchasing a whole new condenser that could serve 2 sheets for the next 15 to 20 years is a better investment than just upgrading the existing one that is now nearly 15 years old.
Go ahead.
See, is an evaporative condenser the same thing as a chiller? Are these the same things, or are these different?
I'm not a mechanical
Okay.
expert.
I think that's what I'm getting wrapped around the
So
axle.
I do believe that that is the primary component that creates ice. No, Matt is saying no. So I'm going to phone a friend and ask the buildings and structures manager to come up and give us a little education.
It's not a
Very
cooling.
particular about words and language, so.
Council. So the cooling tower that we're talking about replacing would cool the water that is used to go into the ice plant. Because so we have compressors, it takes the refrigerant, compresses it like it says, cools it off, pumped out, gathers heat, comes back in, separated from the oil that's inside of it. So the main component of the ice making system are the compressors. The cooling tower that we're talking about potentially moving up a few years is a portion of that entire system. There's multiple pumps that pump the refrigerant from the compressor system and the heat exchanger plates in the cooling tower, and it pumps it out into the ice. That's what actually cools off the concrete that all the piping runs through, comes back in. And so it's this whole big loop where it pushes the refrigerant out, brings it back in, it's heated up, it cools it off. So all of these things work in concert with each other to be able to create the ice and keep the ice the way it needs to be.
Thank you, Matt, was it?
Yes.
So the chiller is a separate component of this larger cooling system than the evaporative condenser. That's different.
That would be correct.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask a question about the chiller? Because I know that was borrowed, taken from the Fort Wyoming Center. I don't remember how long ago that was. It's been at least several years. And so I'm just curious where the chiller, I know David Street Station just bought one for their small rink for 400,000, so another significant expense. Where is that in our 5 to 10 year capital agenda?
Are we talking about, I'm sorry,
He's
Mayor.
specifically asking about the chiller.
the chiller for City Hall?
The chiller for the ice arena that we took from Fort Wyoming Center when there was ice up there.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, the chiller in the way that I think you're talking about it, that would be similar to what was just purchased at David Street, would be the entire system of the compressors and the pumps and all of that kind of works in concert with each other to be the chiller system. But the chiller consists of a whole bunch of subcomponents of those pumps and compressors. And what they have at David Street has its own internal cooling tower, I believe, or its own evaporative system to cool off the refrigerant and the water. But it's kind of the chiller is the entire system itself is, I guess, the easiest way to describe it.
Okay. Thank you.
Good job on it. Your
If I can remember my original question.
Your original
question. It was, so this is all great information. I'm learning a lot. Thank you. Typically, my experience with the capital budget is that we usually get a memo for each kind of expense as a part of the capital budget. And so my question is this the first of a couple conversations we're having about the capital budget? Or is this kind of our only pass, in which case I was kind of hoping for some more granular detail about, I like having all those individual memos, because when people are asking me, what do you need a mower for at the cemetery? The memo always tells me the current mower is this old, it's safety concerns. And so I like having all that information, and I think it, for the sake of transparency, is helpful. So
Certainly, Mr. Vice. Yes, you will see in your packets, there should be a hyperlinked table. It should be on page, I believe, 3 of the memo itself. If you look at the attachments on the memo itself. So if you,
Did not realize that was a link.
you're welcome to borrow.
not a problem, sir. Up 2 pages, please. And there we go. Yes, right here. Yes, that's correct. It's the capital budget book.
Council, so this budget book is where Pete just told you. Also on the opening page where you can go to agenda and packet. If you look to the rightmost section of that page, it says other or more. It's also available by clicking there.
My apologies if it was buried. But yes, we certainly do have all those details as you guys. And certainly we can throw in those to tonight, but of course, if there was a need, we could.
I would love just, thank you. I'm glad to know it's here. Haven't had the opportunity to review it. So as long as there's a future opportunity, if I have questions about any of these after I've had the chance, I hope we have a future agenda item where we can talk about it.
Mayor, if I could, as I said, my understanding is your process. You have a single review of capital budget tonight, and then it's rolled in and part of your discussion in May with the O&M budget. Are you asking for an additional budget work session on capital beyond this one, but before May, or is May okay?
May is okay for me as long as we have some flexibility and like if the capital budget needs to be set in stone because we're focused on other things in May, and it would be helpful to have this one, I would love to review this before I make any final decisions is all. So if we have an opportunity in May to make some small adjustments to the capital budget, I'd be okay, but I'm kind of bummed I didn't get a chance to read all this before tonight's meeting. So.
Go ahead, Pat.
I saw it, I didn't dare open it, so,
We know about you and technology.
but thanks for the opportunity. I do, if Kyle's done for.
Aye.
uh,
Get 280 pages, man. It's gonna take.
This is gonna take you a minute.
Go ahead, Pat.
So I'm kind of concerned a little bit on the financial considerations and source of fundings. And most of them make sense, but I kind of am a little concerned on the sewer fund taking, because I thought we didn't have a lot of money in there, but we're taking 2,860,250 out of that. And in a lot of ways, I mean, that makes sense when we're doing 15th Street, 14th Street, some of that. But so if somebody could just kind of why, I guess.
Mr. Mayor, yes, Councilor Sweeney. One part of the process that we always go through whenever we look at the utility funds is your capital ask consistent with the pro forma that you presented? That's typically the very first question we ask of those measures. And in this case, it is within their proposed spending plan per pro forma. So we do believe that they have the financial capacity to cover it. Now, certainly in the sewer fund in particular, yes, that is being balanced on the 34% rate increase, which was passed recently. So that is how we have made those numbers work, so that sewer can start to catch up with some of this investment. And we'll see that sewer is spending almost twice as much as it was last year in sewer. It's a significant increase, but it's also that's how we catch up from a 300-year replacement to a 100-year replacement.
The questions for Pete prior to the capital? Yeah, go ahead.
I think were we going to talk about the Casper Lad edition? Was that one of them? Or no, it's CBC and fire station. So my question in regards to lads is, do we use a certain formula, or is there a certain threshold at which point, like how do we make the determination an area requires a lad? Is it the infrastructure has to get to so poor of a quality? Is that the threshold? Is, you know, the average road condition has to reach a certain threshold? Is it, because I know the lad is necessary to replace, my understanding is essentially the sidewalks and the connections to the homes. So at what point do we determine it's just a normal street project or necessitates a lad?
Certainly. And certainly I've got a city engineer who's going to be able to parse it more precisely. I know that my general answer to that is there are portions of the area that is either within the right of way or just outside of the right of way, which are the homeowner's responsibility, things like service lines, curb and sidewalk, which are the homeowner's responsibility to maintain. So the LAD is a way to raise money from all the homeowners at once so that they can work all together, work with our contractor to save money and replace all those things at the same time. And certainly it's beneficial to do it all at once. But anyways, I'm going to defer the floor to the city engineer because he knows more about this than I. My fault.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilor. So basically three things: the conditions that are there. You know, the streets have a pretty low PCI, lower than our status quo for Casper, and in need of replacement. The other is age. That subdivision is fairly old. We've had a lot of potholes in that area, and it's in need of some care. And the other is basically does, I guess, age, condition, and standards. That area, sidewalk, ADA, some of those areas just do not meet our standards. And so we look at all of those, and if they don't rank very high, we tend to put those in an LAD, especially if they're
grouped together. Area is another one that we look at. If they're sparse and apart from each other, typically we don't consider those as LAD, but if they are condensed in a specific area, we look at those and that's how we consider the LAD. And Pete's right. It's a benefit to the residents there because a lot of times if they're not maintaining sidewalk, which typically they're responsible for their curb and their sidewalk, it's a benefit to them and the city to partner together in order to basically bridge that gap and help pay for a lot of the things that they would have to pay on their own if they hired a contractor to do the work.
Amber.
Follow up to that. So in the event that the LAD failed, do we carry on with our portion of the project, or does it sort of get moved down to a later time and we move on to some other part of town, or what happens?
We continue on with the project. We either reduce scope or find money somewhere else. We take a look at the project and see if we can keep certain curb walk, sidewalk, things that the LAD would pay for. And again, we either take that out of the project and focus on the street portion and the utility portion, which is also an improvement to the area.
So, to that point, how do they vote on that, or is it an automatic assessment? I read something of that, but I didn't understand.
Mayor, Councilor, it has to get a no vote is an acceptance of it, but it has to have 50% or more of the residents within that established LAD to vote no, in order not to move forward.
It's an opt-out petition.
How do they get do they get something in the mail?
Mayor, Councilor, so yes, we have public meetings and we establish a date for that ordinance to be created for that LAD.
Okay.
And then during that time, the public comment and opportunity for residents to speak on it and make their vote either for or against.
Okay. Thank you. So
Look,
one other comment so we just approved on the golf course, to have a user fee and to have additional monies for cart replacement and those type of things. And so in my mind, when I read the funding sources and saw municipal golf fund, 188,000, I was like, so are we robbing from Peter to pay Paul? Any place that had a buck, that's where we're pulling it from.
thanks, Alan.
Mayor, Councilor Sweeney, the golf fund is, unlike most of the other enterprise funds, it is profitable in terms of it brings in more revenue than its operational costs. And so the golf fund is able to cover some of its capital. It's not able to cover all of it, but it is able to build up a fund balance. And we do use that in most years for some of the capital needs of the golf fund. In this year, it is not, the golf fund's not covering all of its capital needs, but it's certainly contributing.
Other questions for Pete before we move on to the reports? Okay, thank you, Pete. Appreciate that detailed presentation. All right, Madam City Manager.
Okay, so council, as I said, we'll move to project reports on the two projects that are partially budgeted for. We'll start with the Casper Business Center, and I believe the city engineer is going to lead that conversation, and we will be referring to the memo in your packet, which is about 3 pages long and very detailed.
Mayor, councilors, thank you. So with the Casper Business Center remodel for the new Casper Police Station, city engineering staff as well as PD have been working pretty fast and hard with
with Police Facilities Design Group and Sampson Construction, whom is the hired CMAR. Currently, we're in phase 2 of the project. So overall, there's 3 phases and components to the project. The first phase was completed in 2025, and that was demolition of the interior and asbestos abatement. And that portion of the project is completed. There was a portion that had been originally included in the bid for that, but got removed, and that was the window portion. That portion is going to be segmented into phase 2. We are currently in phase 2 right now. Phase 2 basically includes all the core infrastructure of the building. New HVAC, electrical, plumbing, fire suppression, some structural modifications. If you recall, there was a portion on between the levels 2 and 3 that there was an opening in the ceiling there. That has since been filled in, and so that third level will now be completely be able to be utilized. In phase 2, we're also looking to probably put some exterior signage on the exterior of the building to basically show that, identify the building as the Casper Police Station headquarters. But we're working on that phase right now. That phase is it's just over $14.7 million. That contract has been awarded. That's been budgeted. And we're moving forward with that. Phase 2 plans to be completed by February 2027. That is our goal. Phase 3, we are currently in design for that, and we plan to have design completed in a couple months of this year. And so that project includes the finishing of the entire space to make it functional. We plan to add standby power with that phase, with complete finishing. Also, the sally port of the building, which is basically where anybody who's detained in a police vehicle with PD can be safely transitioned into the building. That is also planned. And so I had mentioned, we plan to begin that in June of 2026, and then that to be completed in October of 2027. A couple of items with that, the municipal court for the building, there was some back and forth. It wasn't with some value engineering. We were not planning to have that in originally, but we're planning to bring that back into the project in phase 3. And so it's going to not be as elaborate, but it's going to be a functional space to be utilized for both the municipal court and PD. It's in a centralized location as well. The original design included it, but it had been taken out at a certain point. I'd mentioned the sally port, and in phase 3, the sally port is planned to go in that phase, but we do have to move utilities and vacate the alley where the sally port is planned to be in. And that's taking some time. City engineering staff have gone ahead and started the vacation process, but like other processes, you need to have a certain amount of the business owners and residents within a certain radius to basically comply and agree to have that vacated. And we're nearing completing that. The utilities, we also have to have consent by them so they do not reserve their existing utilities there. We have the power, we have gas, and we have some communication companies that have made some reservations. And so We've got to first finalize our alignment with the power company and the other utilities, which I think we're headed in a good direction about and for. And then we need to formalize utility easements with them so that they have some assurance that they can reroute their utilities, and then we will proceed with vacation of the alley so that we can build the Sally Port. Parking garage that's existing there. With that, this phase 3 does not include any work with that parking garage. It is in need of structural repairs. However, with the funding here, we're focusing on the main building so that it can be functional for the police department. The EOC, Emergency Operations Center, there was some discussion on that to see if there's earmarked funding for that. But it was pretty difficult at the time in phase 2 because we're already doing some work for that in phase 2. And so trying to delineate the cost on that was a little bit difficult. So we veered towards the equipment for the EOC for that particular. So with that, are there any particular questions with the Casper Business Center?
Go ahead, Pat.
So remind me, when Jill came to us, put together a funding mechanism, we approved that. Was that for phase 2 or phase 3?
I think it was phase 2, but I don't want to speak for Alex.
I believe it was phase 2.
Let's bring in the expert.
There we go.
Mayor, Councilor, that was actually for phase 3. We have phase 1 and phase 2 fully funded.
Okay, thanks for the reminder, and don't go very far, Jill. So,
What's that? Janine just asked me what meeting we were referring to
Yeah.
as far as,
Okay.
never mind, okay.
It doesn't matter.
It's a task force meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought, sorry. Yeah, our task force.
Very good. Okay.
So, on the move of the courthouse, that wasn't, I mean, under Tom Brower, that wasn't part of the conversation before. If we were gonna continue with the Hall of Justice until we got to a point where we could afford to do that. So I take it Tom's no longer even consulting or?
Tom is still involved in the project, but with the municipal court portion of the project, that was one where I think it was basically a removal to save some money to value engineer and not put it in. And then because of some needs and I think some recent changes, Chief speak to that, we brought it back in so that that facility would be built and ready for that use.
We want the chief to come up. Yeah. Come on up, chief.
We found that, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but largely it's going to be from an efficiency standpoint to have the court system in there. And then with added increases to any costs associated with rent and infrastructure upgrades, because we still are responsible for 50%, even if the court's in there, is my understanding. Asked to go back and see if we can't do some value engineering and get the courts back in there with a much smaller scale of, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles and the trimmings that normal courts have. So we're able to pull that off by filling in that hole in there with, it'll still be a functional courtroom and a useful space for the PD and public as well.
So at some point I want to ask Jill if there's a possibility of broadening that phase 3 financing mechanism, or if that's already, that ship has sailed at this point.
Mayor, Counselor. So we have not started on our debt financing yet. That is the direction that we got from council, that we wanted to explore that. But we were intending to come back to council with the details of that debt financing before we ever moved forward.
Because at the time, it was advised, I can't remember if it was going to be 15.5 or around 15 million. We talked about possibly up to 16 or 17. Carter didn't feel comfortable servicing that. So
Mayor, Counselor, the original amount that we had talked about was 15 million, and we would do it over a 20-year debt service.
okay. And then if I could, so on the alley vacation. So I've gotten some flack. I haven't had a ton, but I have had some folks reach out and why do you need that? And so just, I utilize the alley. I still do some banking at First Interstate, use the drive-through. Then I take a left and use that alley behind the Masonic Lodge and the Townsend Justice Center. Sallyport's off the alley, doesn't block the alley, but that's their entrance into their Sallyport. I believe that's how they transport the prisoners to the Townsend Justice Center, but maybe I'm wrong.
So, Mayor, councilors, so we have overhead power that runs through there. That alley is basically for franchise utilities to run through. We also have a very large 8-inch gas main that runs under there as well. So during design, we looked at a lot of different ways in order to get these vehicles and anybody detained into the building. And the best spot was on that alley because they could come in, they could be right by the elevators. There's a separate elevator that could allow, transport to a different location that's away from, public interface. And so in order to build in that particular space, which is pretty ideal, the police vehicles can access off of First Street, utilize that Sallyport there. And with the utilities moved, there would be no issue of a potential break or anything that would cause that area to not be functional. You've seen through town, like some utilities that have to be worked on with traffic control and things like that, that would encumber that portion of the alley. So in order to alleviate that and to make that a usable space for the city of Casper, that's why we're vacating that portion. We're going to plan to allow realignment of the utilities that are there existing, and then also allow for an access easement so that the local businesses there and some utilities like trash removal and things like that can still access Center Street while the police facility can utilize that Sallyport.
Ethan, do you want to say something about that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, I just want to make a quick clarification. I believe Councilor Sweeney was referencing the Townsend Justice Center Sallyport. So we were talking about the Casper Business Center, which is operated by the Casper Police Department, which also needs a Sallyport to get people in and out of the Business Center building. So that alley that is next to First Interstate Bank and by the Townsend Justice Center, that's not the alley that we're trying to vacate.
No, Mayor, I totally get that. I'm using that as an example of an active alley with a Sallyport. Why can't we do the same thing?
My mistake, Mayor and Council.
Maybe the same one.
because this business center is an existing building, there is not opportunity to create a sally port outside of the alley. That is why we are trying to make a vacation of that alley to build a sally port. It's the existing building.
And one last question on Sallyport. Utilize the existing garage door that's between off of David Street. That's currently in place. Does that not enter into the building at the right place?
Mayor, councilors, it does, but it also has a loading dock and there's some stairs before you get to the elevators. You'd have to walk them down the hallway, around a corner, up some stairs, or to another elevator that's not secure. By having that port on the outside of the building, as engineers have said, there's no way on the existing structure to incorporate that somewhere in, like at the Townsend Justice Building where they've got a sally port you can drive in, or even at the current Hall of Justice where you can drive in downstairs. So this is the most efficient way to get someone that's in police custody, not court custody, but police custody, in for active investigations in a secure manner, to make sure that, you know, we've got control of them from A to B, to get them into those interview rooms. They can't squirm out of something or take them downstairs where they fall or a ledge trip or something like that. And the shorter distance we have to negotiate them and get them through the building, the better it is for us from a liabilities aspect. This is the most efficient way with a legacy building.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for all the information. I've gotten some questions about the parking lot. Can you please remind me, what is the current status and accessibility of the parking lot across from America on corner of Center and First? How's that parking lot currently being used and who can use it? And then once this project's all complete, what was the intended use of that parking lot?
I can answer that partially, Mayor, Councilor. So the original design is intended to build a police garage there for vehicle use. And so that has been removed from the design. So the existing parking lot, I know that by the city, but there are some agreements there that others use it. But I don't know exactly who's got use of that necessarily. But I think there are some potential there for not use to the surrounding businesses.
Fenced off right now.
Right now,
Fenced
though,
off.
could you mention that it's for construction staging right now? through
Oh,
the
yes,
project?
yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, but currently, yes, it is used for construction staging right now. Ideally, you know, some of that overhead power is in the way, but we're trying to work to see if we can get some of it removed so that we can utilize the upper floors of the building efficiently, and actually taking it up ourselves using a crane would be really nice, but we'll see how that works out. Yeah.
So in the original estimate of the third phase on power in particular, was that factored as part of the 15 million? Do you remember?
So Mayor, Councilor, so the phase two does standby power. It just includes the basic amount, which is communication and life safety. Phase three, I think that's what you're referring to in that 15 million. That does include backup power facility. But in general, like the power to the building, a lot of that is getting taken care of in phase two with the major component with the backup power integrated into phase three.
So
Go ahead.
So have we budgeted already for the vacation of the alley, the move and upgrade on the power underground in all of that, or are we counting on Rocky Mountain Power to pick up the tab?
So, Mayor, Counselor, so most franchise agreements, the franchisee is responsible for moving their facilities. So I believe in this case, we understand that they are going to fund that move as it is in the vacation of the alley. So there isn't a lot of funding that the city has for vacating the alley as far as moving the existing infrastructure. The city does have a sewer main in there that they're going to have to do some moving with, but also utilize for the construction of the project. But overall, the vacation is on the cost of the franchisee.
And there's still fiber optic.
Correct. There's a couple of fiber optic communications. That building, because it served as a centralized data center, communication center, there's still some fiber optic that is pretty large and kind of far-reaching that is still going to the building, and so some of that needs to be modified with the vacation of the alley.
Any other questions to the staff, chief, Jill, anybody from this report? Okay, thanks everyone. Appreciate the update.
Council, we'll talk about Fire Station 1 next, which is our second partially budgeted project, and it bridges the gap as well into our spec projects that we will talk about. So this will be the first of those 4 projects that we discuss. Chief Black will walk us through the memo, and as he moves up here, I'll remind you that you did have $4.4 million approved from the specific purpose tax package. That, as a refresher, was for design, pre-construction, and other eligible project activities. Very little of that has been spent to date, $770,187. The majority of your packet for this meeting, I think, is actually design and information around the fire station. So I knew that the fire guys are super proud and excited to be out of historic Station 1 and hopefully before long into a new Station 1. So there's more detail than you would ever want in the packet, but the chief will cover the memo and give you a general sense of where we are with the project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Thank you for your time tonight. Give me an update on the Fire Station 1 replacement with the specific purpose tax. I'm going to call it the spec tax anytime I talk about it. As you know, we were awarded $4.4 million through the spec tax, spent $770,187 for a professional service contract with a RET Design Group. They've done an incredible job taking us through this project. All the engineering and design so far, we're very pleased with their progress. That gives us a remaining balance of $3,629,813 to be applied to construction costs. At this point, programming, schematic design, and design development have now been completed, resulting in 47% of the overall engineering and design phase being finished. That gives us a possible construction start date in November of 2026. And in addition to the spec tax that we've been awarded through this, the city is pursuing a state loan and investment board and loyalty construction grant to supplement further construction costs. By having this project begin funding already, we've been able to streamline the process of getting the project rolling. It's preserved a significant balance to offset future construction expenses. It's maintained a schedule certainty and has positioned the city to competitively procure work during the CMAR guaranteed maximum price process in 2026. The current preliminary estimates for the total construction costs of the station is $22,228,520. This project supports the council priorities. Goal number 1, safe and healthy community. And with that, I would like to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for Chief?
Council, a week from now, we will talk about the mineral royalty grant. That'll be on your agenda a week from today. So if you have questions around that, they may be better served and better answered a week from now.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. Appreciate the update.
Okay, so we will move to the second of our spec projects, which of course is moving us out of partially budgeted and into fully budgeted projects. And that project is our Public Safety Communications Center equipment upgrades, and Chief Cheney can address that.
I didn't realize that. I thought we were going through this whole station on the fire station.
It was just a quick update on where they were going and this grant that we're applying, that they're going to apply for, and we're going to talk more in depth about that from SLIB. You didn't miss much, Pat. It was just the most intricate conversation we just ever had.
Well, I wondered the addition of the training center to the new fire station. I thought we were using the existing station. Number one would become the training center. So,
sorry, Chief, come on back up.
So I was curious how that was going to work.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, Councilor, could you repeat the question?
So design, it appears there's a training center with a pull-through bay. The conference training.
So on that schematic, you can see you have all the apparatus bays on the station. You have all the living quarters for the on-duty personnel. On the other side of the station is admin training, community risk reduction, all of the command staff.
Okay. So, Mayor, I'm curious then what happens to the existing Station 1?
So existing Station 1, I don't believe the city has come to a good consensus on what the best use of that property is right now. There's been a lot of discussions of different things, but at this time, I don't believe there's any solid plan for it. There's a lot of different ideas that it can be utilized for.
So I thought it was going to be a training center.
The current one.
The current.
I'll let the chief address that, but I wondered if the chief could speak to current Station 1 as well, if there's any residual fire use of the facility after new Fire Station 1 comes online.
There's absolutely residual fire use of the facility. We can host training academies through it. We can have overflow reserve apparatus, a lot of our equipment. There's been talk with partnering with PD on some different ideas on utilization of it. Currently, we're in the city center building and we're totally isolated from the department. So by building it all together, the command staff, the station, we have a central hub where we're a more effective and efficient organization. And having Station 1, utilizing that for different training programs, training academies, there's a lot of different overflow storage that can go into that station.
With that being said, Council, I just wanted to give the chief a chance to address if there was, like I said, any residual fire use of the building. But I think the original statement is correct. For current, soon-to-be old Fire Station 1, there is no consensus citywide opinion as to whether it makes sense to keep that building for any use, fire or otherwise, or if it would make sense not to keep that property and building. So those are future conversations to be had.
Do you have more questions?
Well, I'm assuming, some of these are, the state had to come to design codes for the old Yellowstone district, and I'm assuming the architect took that into I don't know if it's gonna be metal on the outside or brick or.
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, yes, it is in the plans to make sure it meets all Old Yellowstone District codes.
Thank you. Sorry.
5 stories. Don't go over 5 stories.
Yeah, can't.
Or get a brilliant.
They don't make fire trucks that tall yet.
You can.
Oh, there's a weird, there's a weird. Okay, thank you.
So we're ready to move to Public Safety Communications Center equipment. Thank you.
Mayor, Counselor, for me, excuse me, one of the spec tax was for the Natrona County Public Safety's Communications Center relocation from where it currently is on Landmark to the 8th floor of the City Center building, or Casper Business Center. Sorry, we have a lot of acronyms around. We had asked for $5 million, with $2 million of that going to console replacement, radio equipment, antennas and microwaves, emergency operation live wall, that would be the EOC. Excuse me. There may be some specialized telecommunicated furniture, the 911 system, and updating the public safety recording system, which is your phones and radios. So currently, we have spent, or we are under contract for $750,000 to lock in that price on the of the $2 million for the radio consoles. What that does is it locks us in at a price point, but the warranty and manufacturer's warranty and some of the software stuff won't go into effect until it's installed and operational in that building. Additionally, we have $500,000 locked in under contract for the 911 system. Again, with the same idea in mind that none of the warranties will fall in line or start working or ticking against us until it's installed and operational in that building. We've also started working with the structural engineer for the tower and the infrastructure for the tower on the roof up there for the tower, cabling and racks for all of those components. But that's $500,000. That really haven't spent much money on that, but we're in the process of working through what that would look like, getting that engineer in there to tell us what that has to look like, what components we need. With the consoles, the $2 million ask, currently our backup station is at Station 3, which is at 12th and Beverly. We would take some of the old station or consoles from the current center and move them in there so it's actual dispatch center and not just remote consoles in there. So that would help cover the cost of moving some of those consoles down there. And then with that, the live wall, we're told we can kind of save some costs on that because mostly, correct me if I'm wrong on that, Alex, but it's TVs now and not a big computer component. So there may be some additional salary savings, or not salary savings, but savings with that as well. So that I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Chief? Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I don't know anything about police radios or dispatch consoles or anything, but I do know about like PCs, firewall switches, stuff like that. And I know those devices have a limited lifespan. And so my question is, these radios, I'm glad to hear we're locking in pricing because I'm sure the pricing's certainly just going to go up over time. But these radios and consoles that we're looking at, do we have any idea what the lifespan is? I would hate, it's great to have the full manufacturer warranty and stuff, but I would hate if we lock it in for 2-3 years, we get the new radios and then they reach end of life a year or two later and lose support and stuff. So do we have any idea what their life cycle looks like?
Mayor, councilors, as I understand it, when we lock that price and it'll be built anew when we tell them, hey, we're ready to start building those things. That's my understanding of that.
Okay, so it's not necessarily locking in specific models or anything. It's just a like part of a larger project.
Mayor, councilor, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
So there was talk during this session, the new communication upgrades. Maybe I saw it someplace else in all of this stuff, but all of ours would be up to the current or above the current standards for communications across the state.
Mayor, councilor, I believe we're up to date right now, but there will be time where, similar to our last work session where we talked about maybe upgrading the tower up by the event center, there may be a time where we have to come back and say we have to upgrade these things. But currently, we're operational, we're within where we need to be, everything's working as it should. But there's gonna be a time where we're gonna come back and ask funding for those additional upgrades as mandated by the state.
So in this ask, Mayor, if I remember right, this was 5 million. So is 5 million going to be enough, do you believe, to fit what we need to do? And do we need backup power generation as part of this?
Mayor, Councilor, I believe it's going to be enough, and we also are working on a backup power plan already. You have the generator that exists there that I believe is going to stay there. And then part of the phase 3 and moving on to additional power.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Council, actually, Chief, well, you or your representative would like to probably walk us through Metro next, which is our $7.3 million and second to last project update for the evening. I feel like I see everybody in the audience and up here getting tired, and I'm reminding myself that it's really 8:30, not 7:30, isn't it? Like, we haven't adjusted yet.
Mayor, Councilor, Captain Dabney and Jody Decker have really been working with engineering on the Metro facility. I'm going to turn that over to Alex and Captain Dabney and let them speak on that project.
Mayor and councilors, I can speak to the progress that we're having on this project for the Metro Animal Shelter. As you may recall, this was Proposition 1 that authorized $7.3 million for new Metro Animal facility. Currently, right now, in the project, we are 30% complete in the design. Schematic design complete right now, and we're in the process of hiring a new CMAR for that. That's gone out to for competitive bid for CMAR and selection, and currently we're in the process of hiring them, which you will see soon. The project, as far as getting a GMP, guaranteed maximum price in place, our goal is to have one in place by July of this year, so that we can move forward, I guess, to get that awarded, and then to hopefully have that completed in the summer of 2025. That's our goal. Although if there's anything that comes along, we have until spring of 2028. That's our drop dead deadline to try and get the project completed. Other than that, we've hired Amundsen Associates, and we've been working with them, the architect, and they're doing a good job helping us look at the project, refining things, making sure that we have a facility that's really meets the needs, because the facility is in need of some care. And with that, Captain Dabney, you want to do anything?
Mayor, Councilor, appreciate you letting me talk about this. I'd rather have Jody here. She's much more appealing. I gave her some needed time off. She's been working 7 days a week to try and get this off the ground. So we are in the process. I think we're really making headway as far as what the design should look like, how that money is best spent, and that we're really being good stewards of city funds. The CMAR, I think we're a couple weeks out, maybe, hopefully, from getting that signature. Hopefully construction starts summer of this year. But it was really a design thing that kind of everybody wanted to make sure that we were doing the best for the resources we had. And so I think it took a little bit of extra time. Animal Arts has been a great help as far as what's needed in the shelter for the amount of animals that run through there, as well as taking care of the staff for, air intake, and, a nice facility. So that'll answer any questions you have.
Go ahead, Amber.
And over the life cycle of the Metro Task Force, we've sort of heard back and forth on the second dog kennel wing, maybe, if that's the best way to describe that. What's the status of that? I think we had originally cut it to save some costs, and there was some speculation that maybe we could fit it into the budget. Has that developed at all?
Yes, Mayor and Councilor, we've settled on 32 kennels that are both indoor or outdoor. The flex space is going to be those exterior shelters. We've got a plan in place to be able to move them where they need to go. Some of the discussion that we were talking about from a cost standpoint was doing an actual drive-in sally port, if you will, for animal drop-off so that they can't escape out of there. That's one of the things that's really could be a cost-cutting measure. Maybe we could just do fencing for now, but we're hoping we can actually get that into the plan. The cool design that they've kind of pushed out right now with the indoor-outdoor space is probably a lot. It'll be cool to see because the amount of time that the animals can get out from where they're at right now that doesn't have to require somebody walking them is going to be kind of nice, as well as for cleaning. They're outside. The guillotine doors are shut. Plus, it provides a little bit more room. One of the things that Admonson talked about was, again, from an architecture piece that I don't know about, you got to be able to spin. If you're wheelchair bound, there has to be an access for spinning, and so they're worried about, do we have enough space, enough walkway space, enough place to get the animals out? So I think we have adequate room. We have enough overflow space, and the one thing, again, I always champion Jody when I come in here because her adoption project is so good and her volunteer piece is so good that we don't have quite the length of stay that we used to have. We still have the influx of animals. We still have the same amount of animals coming in, but she's been really good at being able to find adoption places, find places that want to work with us, and make sure those animals get good homes. So it is still a place. It's going to be, a little bit different than I think what you saw in the last one, but still adequate for work.
Thank you.
So remind me, I think I've asked this before, but I was hopeful we were going to be able to hang on to the existing metro for hoarding cases. Is that still part of the plan?
We would still be, Mayor and Councilor, we would still be able to use that in the interim. It's still a building that we'd be able to use. Right now, we're focusing all the money on the new shelter. That space would be adequate for overflow for, pet sickness such as parvo and some things like that. Now, if we do have a large hoarding case, absolutely that would be an option. The goal, even from the architect to Sampson, was we just need to get out and move on. But it will be a space we can use in the interim. Past that, we're hoping this facility covers everything that we need.
I would just add that I would concur with the architect in Sampson. If we have a building that's sort of past its useful life, keeping it for rare circumstances like a hoarding case may actually cost us more money than it's worth. So I'll be anxious to see that data as we move forward and see if it makes sense to keep it long-term. Sounds like it probably won't.
Yes, ma'am. And if I could just, push one more thing at that. I think 83 is when they designed it. 85 is when it was built. Some of the things that we've had to repair, I'm sure you guys see the bills. We spend a lot in that building every year just on regular repairs, regular maintenance, and sometimes even, things that are really out of our control just from an old building. I would hate to not put that money into the new building and have to continue to repair an old building. So easy answer is yes. Could it be flexible? We would rather, and again, that goes back to why the design took a little bit of time, was to make sure that we can have this building and not need something else to go back and forth.
Anything else about Metro?
Thanks, Cap.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay, last but not least, Director Lopez will talk to us about Spec Proposition 8, which is our bandshell at Washington Park.
Hello again. I will make this very fast. From jump, the intention was for us to leverage the Spec tax 1.5 million in grant match, and we were able to do that successfully. And so we intentionally delayed the project until we could submit our application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which happened last November, November 24, excuse me. Then October of 25, we were awarded that $1.5 million grant and immediately went out to RFP for a design architect, the contract of which you awarded last week. And so we are hoping to have a kickoff meeting with the RET very, very soon. And start design. We are going to have city staff and the municipal band involved in the design of the renovation of the Bandshell. And then, of course, my parks team will be really involved in the design of the space immediately around the Bandshell that we hope will enhance the park experience for everyone that goes to events there. And then we have also talked about engaging the Historic Preservation Commission in some of the design discussions just to make sure that we're really keeping true to the historic image of that shell and its place in our community. And so we are excited about how we're progressing and stand for any questions.
Questions?
So in the overall design, I think there was talk about eliminating the pool at Washington Park and moving to a splash pad. Today I got an email from a constituent concerned about that and utilizing it for third space for teenagers during the summer months. But I didn't know if that was still part of the plan, eliminating the pool.
Mayor, Councilor, as you know, we underwent a significant Parks and Rec master planning effort, the results of which were presented to you, I think, in late 2024. That master plan did suggest that we should consider divesting of Washington Park Pool. However, that is not part of this project. It's not considered in this project. And any decision related to Washington Park Pool will be deferred. The earliest we would decide what and potentially have a plan in place is probably 2028. Just because of the amount of time it takes. I mean, we've been fortunate to be really supported by Land and Water Conservation Fund, but the application process is long. Applications are always submitted in November of every year, and we don't even know if we don't get formal award of those dollars until a year later. And so likely not that we would apply for Land and Water Conservation Funds for Washington Park this year. Just because those grants are a one-to-one match and I don't have an identified matching source right now. And so it would be irresponsible for me to apply for a grant that I can't match appropriately. And so we've got to do some budgeting, hopefully through an 18 process to identify some funds that could be leveraged as match for future phases of that park development and other projects throughout the community. But given the timeline and a master plan recommendation for Washington Park that is sort of pull all the phases together, really consider maybe a theme for the park so that as we complete the final phases, it really becomes a cohesive space that all users in different areas are interacting still together in a space that feels common from a community standpoint. So we're a ways out before we're making significant decisions about Washington Park.
So probably not related either. What's being built right now?
So currently we have pickleball courts that still need to be surfaced. They're constructed, they just need to be surfaced so that they're playable. Tennis courts are being constructed right now. Ball field lighting has already been completed as part of phase 1, and then phase 3 is the bandshell, which of course I just noted we're just barely starting design on.
Okay, thank you.
It's not a question, it's more of a wrap up for all of the spec tax projects, so I won't say it unless we're ready to move on from Bandshell.
I think everybody is good to go, actually.
Great. So thanks for these updates. It's very helpful to get them. I mentioned in the last meeting, the website is up and very robust, has a ton of information about all of these projects. I would just encourage the organization. I think that the community is really interested in these projects. So that, they've been following them from the inception of us trying to, talk about the projects, message about the projects, educate about the projects. And so to the extent now that some of these are they're going to start to be a little bit more visible, the progress on them in the community, I would just encourage us to really make sure that we're capturing that and getting it out to the public. So befores and afters, leveraging media tours so that we can get some folks in there to kind of see what the progress is looking like. Ribbon cuttings, I think all of those things, to the greatest extent that we can, I want to bring the community along with this since they opted to support these. And, I feel like they've sort of been in the internal phase where there's just, it's a little harder for folks in the community to kind of know that anything's happening. But I feel like we're about to sort of evolve past that phase and into some that's a little bit more interesting for the community to follow along with. So I just like to make sure that we're putting effort into that.
Totally agree.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Thank you for everybody that was here. We appreciate the staff and appreciate you guys. Your commitment to the city and the hard work that you guys have been doing on all this. I know the capital budget is not easy, Pete, right?
Piece of cake for Pete.
Thanks, everyone. All right, let's go ahead and go on to agenda review. Jeannie, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to go over.
I do not, unless you guys have questions.
Does anybody have any questions about upcoming regular meetings, any work sessions coming up?
So we
Go ahead, Matt.
would like to request real estate matters be discussed at our next possible executive session.
Okay. I'll get with the city attorney. Anything else? All righty, let's do council around the table. Mike, you want to start?
I don't have anything.
Awesome. Brandy.
My judge meeting got pushed until next week, and everything else I have is this week.
Matt.
Not much other than to say welcome to Steve and congratulations to Rick Young on his retirement. So same court liaison meeting Councilor Haskins does.
Awesome.
So I appreciate the follow-up with the soda deal. And I don't know if that Dave's Miller email was shared with some of the constituents. Is there a reason we can't share that information?
Counselor, your contact from constituents certainly can be shared with us at any time.
Okay. Is that better coming?
I think some members of staff received it, Counselor Sweeney. I don't know that all involved staff members did, but I think staff have a good sense of the issues there and had good productive conversations with the businesses and the neighbors around there.
Okay, so I guess I'm unclear at that answer if.
Just wanted to share it with the public. That's what he's asking.
Oh, maybe that's a question
speak
for
on
your
that.
attorney. I thought you were talking about sharing it with staff members. I apologize.
Mayor, I'm unaware of Councilor Sway's referring to, so do this as.
Jeannie, would you mind just real quick? So there was an issue down with the new stirrups soda that just opened up off of 2nd Street, all over by that chiropractic. It's been there for years and years.
Swan
Studios.
Right in front.
Yep. And so there was over the weekend, it seemed like they just opened up a couple days ago. There was an influx of cars down that street. I can't remember the street.
Kenwood.
Yeah, Kenwood, thank you. All the way down. It was pretty backed up. And so we had received some emails from actually the owner of the chiropractic business that had said that it was kind of congesting the whole area, but his patients couldn't get in or they couldn't get out. He said it sent us several photos as well. I think most everybody got those. And so Janine had gotten on top of it, started working with the city staff and everything. And I think you want to share the information that we got from city staff. Is that what you're talking about, Pat?
Well, in particular, Dave,
We
the
all get
owner,
this?
for some reason, can't get back. But
You want to share Dave's information? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, he sent an
just
email,
forwarded it to
Copper
you.
Cup Coffee Company sent an email. I don't know who's on the chain.
Yeah, I think we all got it from Copper Cup. They're the owners of Stirrup, yeah. Or, yeah, Stirrups.
So Mayor, without having studied it, I would just say it sounds like it's all public communication, so I don't think there's anything that would necessarily be confidential. My only caveat is if there's some contemplated enforcement action or some potential violations of ordinance, I would hesitate delving into the details too much if we're not there yet. So.
Okay. Did you hear that, Pat?
I would ask David, reply and ask if it's okay if you forward his traffic management plan to the folks who have reached out and concerned.
Yeah, I check with him.
You see, he didn't copy,
City manager.
evidently not.
I just sent it to her.
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome
Yeah,
to
reach
send
out
it
to
to me and I can share it with staff.
Maybe somebody that knows
Got
how to.
I'm on it. I'm doing it.
No,
Yeah.
you did that.
And it does sound like to that point too, it sounds like city staff is on top of it. They're already working on it, so which we appreciate. So
Getting responses back.
appreciate it.
Great job.
I,
That time down there.
my understanding on, I think it was Saturday, that 3 police cars and an ambulance were over. But I don't know, from one email that I got, I think from Green, didn't indicate there were any
This is
police
just trying
reports.
Address some issue,
concerns that were coming up.
Can you clarify what your question is, please?
So, whichever street that is, who,
Kenwood Street.
Kenwood, that supposedly, I think it was Saturday afternoon, but it might have been Sunday, that somebody potentially got hit trying to back out onto the street, and there were 3 patrol cars supposedly over there.
Mayor, Councilor, so it was Sunday afternoon. There was a report of an accident. By the time we got done investigating it, a disturbance.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Pat, for updates?
No, I think that was the main thing that I tried to deal with over the
Yeah, I
weekend.
think we all, yeah.
So, but
Amber?
I have Parks and Rec Advisory on Thursday, and Tuesday I'll likely be remote, next Tuesday's meeting.
Speaking of which, I've got to be in Rollins next Tuesday. So can one of you, how do I do a proxy?
Email me and Ethan, maybe? I don't know who usually does them, but I'm happy to be your proxy if you want me to. Actually, make Matt your proxy since he'll be here in person.
Did you write anybody down?
I did.
Did you?
I think I put. That's good.
What would you say?
Mayor, council, we did have proxy forms that went out a couple meetings ago. I'll have Brandy check who your proxy is, and if Matt or Amber is not one of them, then whatever we need to do to make that happen.
Appreciate it.
Vice Mayor.
Thanks for saying.
Yes. Cody sent us a Metro report last week. I want to thank Cottonwood Elementary School. Sounds like they did a fundraiser to help benefit the animal shelters. So really appreciate those kiddos over there and the staff helping with that. We had officers over there accepted a donation. Obviously very appreciative, very cool. She did mention also they have a notable number of exotic animals. They're caring for a chicken, a rabbit, a cockatoo, and 3 lizards. So if any of that sounds interesting or appealing to you, please hit up Jody, and I'm sure it's,
Cockatoo sounds fun.
yeah, right?
Lizards.
Yeah, make sure you know about the animals before you pick them up, but obviously those kind of strange ones are, I'm sure they have to take cert there, and it's harder to care for some of the more niche animals, but I read an article in Oil City News recently about a local resident, Shannon Hayden, starting a nonprofit called Beyond Limits Wyoming. My understanding is this to help underserved youth with participation costs for arts and sports. Sounded an awful lot like the work of the Natrona County Rec Foundation, and so I wasn't sure if there was some collaboration or synergy we might be able to realize with Shannon and her efforts. Perfect. And then lastly, just wanted to make sure you all were aware, Wyoming DEQ did grant a state water quality permit for the Seminole Pump Storage Project. They do have an adaptive management plan that lays out monitoring requirements and operational responses, but it sounds like all that's holding them back at this point is some federal approvals that they need. And so I don't know if that means the train's essentially left as far as local citizens having any sort of influence on the outcome, but I suppose just something to keep watching on, and users and stakeholders in the areas, I guess, just as that project continues moving forward, exercising diligence, making sure folks that care a lot about that area are monitoring any changes to the environment and the wildlife so that appropriate remediation efforts could occur if it happened. That's all I got.
I could piggyback on that, Council. I did note that this project was recommended for interim study by the legislature. I don't know where that will go or what that means, but it was of interest.
Good to know.
I think I had mentioned I went to the Rising Together rally on Saturday evening. So I spoke to them at a proclamation. It is a group that is working towards helping with women that are in abusive relationships, that have been abused, domestic violence. Their mission is great. So I encourage you to, they're on Facebook. They have a website. I don't have the information with me, but they're called Allied Angels. And they're kind of getting started doing that and support network for women that are in abusive situations. So very good. Self-Help Center was there. Seton House, no, not Seton House wasn't there, but there was a couple other organizations, but Self-Help Center's partnering with them as well. So it was very, very good.
Mayor, who else doing CY Middle School tomorrow?
I am. Randy is. Are you, Pat?
Yeah, but what time are?
7:30.
I think I'm.
We tomorrow. I guess I could say we have We the People, which is a group have certain issues around the city of Casper that they're going to be working on and talking. We'll be judging that and having that conversation. The city of Casper did a great job. Jolene and Jackie put together a lot of citywide issues that they can utilize to work on. So I'll be tomorrow.
So Tuesday, we'll have plans. That'll fix everything.
Yep. It'll all be taken care of next week
From the young
because of the young ones.
How
They'll
it's
probably do
gonna
a better job
happen.
than us. That's all.
I'm telling you, that's how it's gonna work. They care more than us. They'll
Yeah.
be here longer.